Welcome everyone to a new series on, well, the Slightly Emo Emperor, channel. And today I'm actually joining in with Goldie once again. Let me make sure I unmute you. So can you hear me?
I can.
Yep, alright. So yeah, welcome everyone to, I guess, technically a new podcast, question mark? But that's very tentative right now. It depends on how well this goes. But anyways, welcome to the Caspian Awards. So, this is sort of a new idea that I came up with after sort of watching the Game Awards that came out last month. So, for those who don't know, the Game Awards is basically similar to something like the Grammys or the Oscars or the Annies or the Emmy Awards, where it's like a award ceremony for video games. Well, let's just say that I had very strong opinions about what happened in the Game Awards this past month. Some of those opinions are very passionate, if I can say so myself. And I just felt like the award ceremony, and let's be real here, most award ceremonies in general, they're not very good, if I'm just gonna be frank. They are, let's just say,
very strange rules.
well, they have very strange rules, but more importantly, a lot of the things that they do give out awards and commemoration for ends up either being completely questionable, or they end up just being absolutely not related to what was popular at the time. So, granted, that wasn't exactly the case for this Game Awards, but this was just enough to where I had to speak up. And I think that'd be best for me to be able to actually sort of do our own ceremony, per se. And I am very open to having more people join me on this, if they so choose to. And again, thank you for joining me on this one, because
I am happy to be a part of history.
yeah, because we're about to make some history right here, and we're going to actually commemorate the games that actually deserve some recognition amongst the Sly Army community tonight. So, and depending on how we're feeling with this, we might actually go back into other years, because I was kind of talking with Goldie like several months about this, in general anyways, and I kind of wanted to also see if it was possible for us to go back to like other years to see if we can re-rank them, though I'm willing to only go as far back as like 1995, but several
95.
But that's besides the point. Point is like, I want to see if we can actually give proper recognition to the games that actually deserve the recognition, as opposed to some weird, really bizarre choices that I've seen throughout many of these award ceremonies. And we're gonna obviously do video games for this one, and there are tons of rules and there's tons of other things that we can go over, but I just kind of wanted to lay down that I think it's about time that there's some proper recognition to be given, because at the end of the day, I do feel like there's just a lot of weird choices that were just made, like not even just like the ones that were like like not even just the fact that like some of them won, just even just games that were just straight up like nominated were questionable, as with the Game Awards were this year, which we'll get into for a little bit, some of which you guys will definitely agree with me, but I am going to warn everyone here that let's just say that the awards that I will be going out may be controversial to some, but keep in mind, this is just my personal opinion. And if you disagree with me, that's completely fine. We're just here to have fun and just kind of, meme around, but also sort of give proper recognition to the games that were pretty great. So, cool.
Because after all, we still just want to have fun.
Yeah, because that's ultimately what this is. We're just kind of okay. No, this is not necessarily a shit post. It's just more us just kind of setting things straight. But of course, before the ceremony can actually begin, and since this is actually the first episode, I feel like I need to go over exactly what we'll be covering throughout this sort of thing. So I've actually divided, and yes, I did add transitions this time. But yeah, this time I've actually got a full list of categories on which we will be ranking. We are not doing any of the esports bullshit, none of the content creator shit, like none of that. And we also are not going to be doing any sort of weird awards like Game for Impact, which I've always been confused on what the hell that even meant. Or like,
Well, I assume it's a game that has had the most cultural impact, but you can't really judge that
well,
on the
no,
year.
that's like you would think that would be the case, but no, they just choose like a bunch of like other games that have nothing to do with like the main categories that are above us. Like, and they only get nominated for games for impact. So I have no idea what that category is for. Like, I genuinely don't know. And no one has ever like I tried looking it up and they don't even give a proper definition of what that meant. But yeah, there's also some other awards that we're not going to be giving out, mostly because I felt like they weren't necessarily the best awards to really give out, or at least the ones that like I personally would have thought would have been like stuff like score, like best score in music, or stuff like best ongoing game or best community. I just feel like that's just more so padding time. Like, yeah. I'm more focused on like the best games in a particular genre, which is all the ones that are on the side over there, and then like the ones that like most people probably truly care about the most, which would be best art direction, so like the visual aesthetics of a game, or just sort of like the general like
the design.
Yeah, like the general design. Best narrative, so basically just the story and like the story and the narrative that the game tells. And of course, game of the year, which is the game that does everything the overall best. So there's that. As far as the other categories that we will be doing, we have best indie game. So games that are independently made by either a small company, studio, or just one dude in some cases. And then we've also got action adventure, the best action adventure games. So think just action adventure, action dash adventure games. Yes, those are 3 separate categories. It's confusing, but I'll get to that when we get to that. As well as like platformers and survival horror. So basically just that general category of games. And then we've got role-playing games. So any sort of tactical RPG, strategy RPG, turn-based RPGs, and JRPGs and stuff like that. That is its own category. And then we got shooter games, so mostly first and third-person shooters, though shoot 'em ups and those sort of games can qualify as well. And then we've got both the best sim/strategy games, so simulation games and strategy games. Specifically RTS and turn-based strategy for that category, and then any sort of simulation game like life sim, construction sim, management sim, etc. And then best multiplayer, which is both PvE and PvP, so like cooperative and player versus player multiplayer. And then I thought it would be a good idea to actually have 2 extra categories for the best DLC/expansion, because some games do tend to get updated with new content, official content, I should say, and a lot of people really love that new content. And so and since expansions have been around for a long time, I felt like that warranted a category. And then here's the most important category, I feel like, for a distinction. I also have a best remake slash remaster category, specifically for games that got a lot of attention, but were actually either a remake or a remaster or just a revitalization of an older game. Because I just personally feel like it's kind of weird to nominate one of those games for like best narrative or game of the year, because it's like it's literally the same story or just general
it's already
beats.
been made.
Yeah, like it's already been made. And so I feel like if a game were to be nominated for game of the year, it'd be kind of cheating, especially considering that like one of the games that was nominated at the Game Awards was actually a remake, and funny enough, actually won game of the year. So like one game of the year it was made. So that's why I feel like it was just kind of off to have that as like, like it felt off that that wasn't a category. Okay, it was a category, but for only 1 year, then they got rid of it. But that's besides the point. Point is, those are the categories we'll be doing, at least on this. Though other categories that we might be doing in the future include studio debut, which is basically just any game that was made by a debuting studio or that was their first game. And then I was originally actually going to do a sports slash racing slash fighting game category for this time, but here's the problem: there weren't enough games that qualified. And I'll go over the rules in a second. But let's just say that I will admit I'm not the biggest sports game fan or racing game fan, but
I do like racing games though.
Yes, and I was about to say is that it just would have felt off if we just completely left them out entirely, because like that is a big chunk in like
it's a lot of games.
Yeah, like you can't ignore it, but at the same time, this year just did not have enough that I could find that had that qualified, which of course leads us into the rules for all of this. So there's 5 general rules that we're going to be basing this off of. So this is the most important rule, I feel like. The game must have been released between January 1st and December 31st of that entire year. We're not having weird bullshit cutoff dates for that entire year, because this is something that the Grammys fucking was stupid about for the longest time, where they had like the first 7 months of the year that they were covering, but then also like the 5 previous months of the other year, and so like it was more
like it's a year. It's like a year behind, but also like
not
really. But...
Yeah, like fuck it. To quote the man named Crash Thompson.
Don't yell at me. Yell at the Grammys.
It's confusing. It's dumb. We're not doing that. We're doing it throughout the entire year. No physical year bullshit. So if a game came out December 31st of 2022, I'm sorry, but it does not count. It would count for the 2022 list, but not for 2023. So yeah, that's the first rule. Rule number 2, to make this a bit more, I guess, accepted and more fair for games that people would actually generally agree to be on this list, I've decided that for pretty much every single category except for Game of the Year, which that's a special case, a game has to have at least a 75% rating or a 7.5 user rating on Metacritic for it to qualify to be in the category of this list. You will be surprised with what games actually do not qualify. Because, like, for example, to bring back the sports thing or the fighting thing or whatever, I tried looking up the Metacritic reviews for both Street Fighter 6 as well as Mortal Kombat 1. I thought people liked Street Fighter 6, but I actually looked it up, and while the critic scores were good, the user scores were too low. So because of that, they did not qualify. So that's why games like that are not on those, which I know, spoiler alert, those games aren't going to be nominated. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm surprised too because I thought people also generally liked.
Yeah, I thought too. I thought people loved Street Fighter 6. Like, okay, I'm not too surprised with Mortal Kombat 1 because of the microtransaction controversy and the fact that the Nintendo Switch version was dog shit. And so because of that, I'm not surprised with that. But with Street Fighter 6, I was actually surprised. It was actually lower than the Mortal Kombat score too.
Ooh.
So, but yeah, those types of games, they unfortunately will not count. So I'm sorry, fighting game fans, but this wasn't really a good year for fighting games, it turns out. Also, another important rule, any game that is currently in early access will not be qualified, so no games that are currently in beta, alpha, or pre-alpha would be accepted. I was actually considering adding Lethal Company onto this, but it's actually an early access game, therefore it does not count. So, it does not qualify for this list. Now, as for the Game of the Year rules, that one is a bit more higher stakes. In order for it to qualify, it has to have at least an 80% or higher score on Metacritic from both parties to be accepted. And like I was saying earlier, it has to be a completely original game or like a sequel to a game. It can't be a remake or a remaster because like I said, there was a game that was remade that was nominated even though it already won Game of the Year. So it does not count. And last but not least, this might be a bit selfish, and this is going to be the most controversial part of this entire thing, but I'm not going to lie, I am very picky when it comes to the vibes I like with certain games. So because of that, only games that I'm personally interested in, or at least have somewhat of an appeal for, will be chosen. Any game that had any sort of controversy tied to it, and I mean a major controversy, will not count either, and we'll get to the big one once we get to it. Don't you worry, because I know I'm going to have a lot of comments on it as to why this particular game's not going to get nominated. Actually, technically 2, but yeah, people are going to be mad about 1, but yeah, because those things just matter to me personally. It may not matter to everyone, and some people might want to be objective, but I'm someone who has to bring I hate to spoil the beans for people, but
you gotta bring the mood down. You just gotta.
Well, I'm just being fucking truthful, because I don't want to support this piece of shit company. That's all.
Gotta bring down the vibes.
Yeah, fuck you. God. I know you're joking, but again, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, this is all just personal opinion. So if anyone disagrees with me, that is completely fine. Just keep that in mind, especially once we get closer and closer to the Game of the Year category. But anyways, I think that's all I need to lay down before we actually get into this sort of list. Do you have anything to add, or?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready. Without further ado, let's.
All right.
Begin the first annual Caspian Awards.
The first annual Caspian Awards. Again, we're probably going to do it for 2024, but we might also whatever. Let's see how this turns out. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's get the show started, shall we? There you go. I love it when an audience loves when we're doing. But anyways, let's get on. So yeah, let's get on to the first category. Best indie game.
Best indie game of 2023.
So also keep in mind, with these sort of lists, or not lists, but more so these rankings, we're actually going to be showcasing what was actually truly nominated first by like the actual Game Awards, and then we'll actually be doing what I personally nominated, with somewhat Goldie kind of looking over, but
my opinion also kind of matters too.
Everyone's opinions matters, but as in for the case of tonight, mine's the only one that matters.
Oh, okay.
I'm
all right.
I'm joking. Come
all
on.
Right,
that was mean of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Rude.
Anyways, best indie game. Everyone knows what an indie game is, right? Independent game made by like one person or like a small team. So
the guy in his fucking bedroom.
Yeah. So what were the games that were actually nominated for best indie game this year? So the games that were nominated originally for the actual Game Awards was Dredge, Dave the Diver, Viewfinder, Sea of Stars, and Cocoon. There was some controversy with Dave the we already reached our first controversy. Why the fuck is Dave the Diver on here? That is not an indie game. That is actually a AAA game. Why? Because if you actually look up the company that made this, it is a multi-billion-dollar South Korean company that made that game. Yes, that's why everyone was making fun of the fact, oh, that's not an indie game, because it's actually not. It's made by a pretty big South Korean company. Nexon is what it's called. So it doesn't it already the first category, it's already like, yeah, this is fucking bullshit, because it's like that's not even an indie game. So as far as the other games go on here, like, honestly, like, if I were to have chosen like any that are on this list, honestly, Sea of Stars and Cocoon are probably the ones I could have chosen. You know, Sea of Stars, sort of, you know, JRPG inspired game. Yeah, it's an RPG. And Cocoon is sort of more of a adventure exploration sort of puzzle hybrid game. And so pretty commendable choices in those regard. That being said, not that like these other two games, Dredge and Viewfinder, they're not bad games. They're just not really my thing, because Dredge is like
I really do like the art direction with Dredge, though. I think it's a very pretty looking
I just
game.
don't really care for like it, mostly because it's like a fishing game. And so like that's just not, it's, again, I'm not saying that's bad, it's just not really my thing.
More so my vibe, sort of, not necessarily survival, but like kind of strategy, sort of.
Yeah.
Type. I guess it's kind of like that.
So yeah. Anyway. So what actually won? Sea of Stars was the game that won. And if I'm gonna be honest, I'd say that's generally deserving. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with Sea of Stars.
With a take.
Yeah, like that one's a good take, because again, a lot of people love their JRPGs. A lot of people love just, you know, 2D RPGs in general, and it has a cool aesthetic. So honestly, not a bad choice. But let's kind of fit this into what I'm personally more interested in, and what like I could have wish would have gotten a bit more recognized. So I am keeping Sea of Stars and Cocoon here, but I'm replacing the other games with other games that looked interesting to me, or in some cases, or in one case, I played and I thought was actually pretty awesome. So the first one we've got is called Aquatico, which is a very beautiful, actually, looking underwater city builder. Came out in January, and I thought it looked pretty cool. Some people had some issues with some of the frame rate of it, but it scored high enough, and honestly, I think it looks pretty cool. And then we have Last Spell, which is a turn-based strategy game, fantasy setting, kind of like an XCOM hybrid sort of game. And honestly, I'm surprised, despite how this got I think like near like a 9.0 on Metacritic. This kind of flew a bunch like under a lot of people's radars. If I'm going to be honest, if you had to at least agree, like you have to at least agree, this is a much better choice than Dave the Frickin' Diver.
Not that that's a bad game. If anything, it seems like a decent game.
But it's not an indie. Yeah, it's not an indie game. This is actually an indie game. I made sure of it too. So yeah, like that's a proper indie game. And then last but not least, a game that I've actually been paying attention to since 2021, Herat, a Quake-style FPS game that is really damn good, if I'm going to be honest. A lot of people have been referring to it as Czech Quake, but honestly, I played the demo. Really damn fun. Like, I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to play it. And yeah, it has a weird aesthetic, but it's that sort of Eastern European sort of
that Slavic,
like Slavic punk sort of thing, like Slavic junker punk.
War,
so
like Cold War-esque, the Soviet.
Yeah, like a Soviet punk sort of like aesthetic game, and I really dig it. So, well, that's what games like Stalker is. Yeah,
I wonder if there's a name for that.
It's called like Slavic punk or something. I kind of fit it in with like the other junker punk sort of stuff, but it's kind of a different thing. But whatever. Anyways, so those are the nominations for the Caspian Awards. So I hope you guys at least don't disagree. So, but of course, there's got to be one that is a winner, and I got the envelope, by the way. So,
and the winner.
By the way, this if we do more of these, I will make sure we have a regular envelope. It's just I only had like one of these like yellow ones.
It's the first one. We don't have as high of a budget.
Yeah, we don't have as high of a budget, and again, I'll make sure that there's like more better we improve if we do this in the future. Anyways, let's actually get into the award. And so, the award for best indie game goes to Herat.
I knew it. Just by the way you were hyping it up, I knew it.
By the way, I didn't tell him any of my choices, so he's gonna.
I don't know any of the choices.
He's serving as a proxy for everyone in the chat right now.
Yeah, I'm your audience surrogate. I'm so like. I know just as much. I know just as little as you guys do.
So, anyways, Herat, why did I choose this game? Because I feel like that's one thing that, admittedly, the Game Awards actually do fail on, partially because they focus more on time than we do. But anyways, so why did I choose this over all the others? Again, I really like the aesthetics of all the other ones, but this one just has a very unique sort of apocalyptic, sort of Czech, Slovak aesthetic to it. Like, again, I would show actual sort of gameplay and stuff, but obviously I'm using Google Slides, so I can't really do that. But like,
budget cuts.
It's not budget cuts. I just didn't have time. Anyways,
lack of budget.
So yeah, like basically, like I said, I think it has a very unique design, and the weapons themselves, yes, it does feel very similar to games like Quake, or hell, a better, more modern comparison would be something like Dusk. Like, this game, I'm pretty sure actually was on the same engine that was used for Dusk. But keep in mind, what makes me impressed with this is that this was literally made by only just one guy. Like,
one guy.
Yeah, one guy who made like a 7 to 8 hour long campaign where you fight a bunch of, Slavic demons and Slavic, dudes in the night. Yeah, like Cold War era sort of like enemies that are inspired by that sort of architecture. But it's not just because, I do like my, Doom/Quake clones. It's mostly also because, like, it's the fact that, like, all these other games were made by studios. This was made by one dude. So congratulations to that one guy who was able to manage to make a whole ass game like that, especially since that's actually very uncommon for full-fledged games. For conversions have been made by individual people, but not by individual, like, single people. So, and again, I just like the fast-paced action and all that fun stuff. So, congratulations. You won. The first award has been given away. So, do you have any comments?
I do not, because I think it is a reasonable, as to just show that the power that like one person can do, with some like some direction and some knowledge of computers, of programming, and a dream.
And it's also proof that there's no excuse for a AAA game to release in a terrible state. Cough, cough, Modern Warfare 3! Anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to action-adventure. So, again, action-adventure is the category of not just action-adventure games, but, like, also everything that sort of is underneath that, like, subcategory. So all the subcategories. So action games, adventure games, platformers, and survival horror games also fit in this category. So just that whole broad thing, per se. So let's get into the nominees that were actually on the original Game Awards. So, and I mean, again, not necessarily bad choices here. So
not bad.
Yeah, not bad choices.
We have Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, so like as far as like games that were pretty popular this year, not necessarily bad choices at all. Dare I say
actually very good choices.
Yeah, very good choices. However, here's the problem.
Most of them are remakes and sequels.
Well, actually, that's not my problem. Like, I'm fine with the sequel. I'm just not fine with the fact that, like, unfortunately, with Jedi Survivor, that game's PC launch was terrible.
It had a bad PC launch.
Like, okay, I played Jedi Fallen Order, and I like what I saw with Survivor, but damn it, like, that PC port was terrible. And as far as Spider-Man 2 goes, I respect the game. I think that it, for the people who like it, that's pretty good. But here's the first controversy that a lot of people will have with me, including you. I'm sorry, but I just, it's not really my thing, if that makes sense.
You don't really care much for Spider-Man.
I don't really care for Spider-Man or Marvel in general.
What a shame.
Wow.
I'm sorry, it's just, I just never really was the biggest, like, superhero fan. Like, even whenever it was, like, big.
Contrarian.
It's my show, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Contrarian awards.
So, I can do whatever the fuck I want, and also people need to stop being salty online about Spider-Man 2. Anyways. But whatever, it's just not really my thing. If people like it, that is completely fine, but it just doesn't really appeal to me. And as far as Resident Evil 4, well, I mean, already we got ourselves another controversy. This game, really good, but it's a remake of a game that was already nominated this spot back in 2005. So it just feels disingenuous to have this game be here. That being said, though, the game that was actually awarded action adventure was Tears of the Kingdom. So, and you know what? I think I respect that enough too. It has its problems, but I do think that like this is another example of a game that deserves its nomination. Like, you know, it expanded upon the world of, you know, Hyrule.
Zelda.
Yeah,
Hyrule Legends Zelda.
Hyrule. It added more interesting and intricate puzzles. And generally speaking, like generally from what I can tell, the Nintendo community opened this game up with, you know, arms. So
Welcome this game with open arms.
yes. So what are we actually going to be nominating here? Well, truth be told, like Zelda and Alan Wake 2 are still going to be nominated here. But the other games, I've decided to change. Because keep in mind, this is technically combining like a bunch of the other awards that they had. So this is kind of combining the action game award with the action adventure, because I think it's weird that they're separate. But yeah, Zelda and Alan Wake 2, they're going to be nominated. But this is going to actually come as a surprise from me, funny enough. Because I used to not be a big fan for the longest time. But I think I've opened up, and I'm actually going to nominate Super Mario Bros. Wonder for this.
Whoa!
So
Definitely a surprise.
yes,
Because you're not the biggest Nintendo fan.
yeah, I'm not the
Or
biggest.
at least, like, yeah, when it comes to like more modern Nintendo.
Yeah, modern Nintendo, I have huge criticisms of, especially when it comes to a lot of the stuff that they did back on YouTube like 10 years ago. They've have gotten relaxed, to be fair. But as far as modern Nintendo
anti-fun policies.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're anti-fun. That being said though, I mean, this game isn't going to reinvent the wheel. Like Mario Brothers Wonder, like I don't think anyone would say like this is.
But it's Mario. It's Mario. You don't really need to reinvent Mario.
Well, I mean, he did reinvent himself with 64, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, as of today,
but
you don't need to reinvent Mario.
No, okay. With Mario Wonder, as far as like, you know, a more like family-friendly game, it's a good choice for that, because admittedly there's not really a lot of family-friendly games we will be nominating anyways, and I think that it deserves at least some recognition, especially since, if I'm going to be honest, it looks fine as far as like Mario games go. Like, I'm not against it.
Something for the children.
Yes. Now, as for other games that I actually do kind of feel was absolutely snubbed, speaking of, Ghost Runner 2. Where the fuck was that Game Awards? Like, only one nomination? I mean, to be fair, like, is it the most recognized Sony exclusive? No, but it has earned its name after, you know, the first Ghost Runner did very successfully back in 2020, and this looks like it's a much improved version of Ghost Runner. And so, and you know, since this, along with Mario, they're both platformer games, and platformers are kind of a dying breed. Actually, yeah, they're like very, yeah, they're like a very dying breed. You don't really see a lot of platformers anymore. I want to at least give recognition to this one because of just a lot of the more unique sort of like attacks you can do in the game, and the fact that it's one of those like rated, like, is this rated T or rated M?
Let me take a look.
Yeah, look it up. Like, you don't really see a lot of those types of like platformers like ever. So yeah, I want to give it a bit of respect. Yeah, look up the Yeah, look up Ghost Runner 2 ESRB.
Yes.
So I want to at least give it some recognition.
Rated M, 17 plus.
Well, there you go. Ever heard of a rated M platform before?
Rated M platformer game.
Well, there you fucking go.
What not?
So, and then we got Alan Wake 2, mostly because this is the only survival horror game I think, actually being nominated, which is a little bit sad in certain
Well,
ways.
for our nomination.
Yeah, for our nominations, just entirely, just as another spoiler alert.
Although people do debate if Resident Evil 4 is more of an action survival horror than a
Oh,
legit
okay.
survival
Well,
horror.
besides Resident Evil 4, well, that one's technically we're not. I guess repeated nominations is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I thought we
But
just meant in general.
but
I thought you
yeah,
just meant like overall. Like
yeah.
in general.
No, obviously Resident Evil 4 is a survival horror game. But anyways,
Action
so
survival.
I'll get into a little bit more with Alan Wake 2 later. But let's get into our final nomination, which is kind of a left field one. We've got ourselves Like a Dragon, the man who erased his name. So this is a spin-off of the Yakuza series that came out back in, I think, November. And it looks pretty cool. Obviously,
yeah, I've been meaning to get into Yakuza because it looks like it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, Yakuza looks like it's hella fun. My friends absolutely love Yakuza 0. And this one's following off of the 2020's Like a Dragon. So that's why it's called Like a Dragon. Well, that's why it's called in Japan. So they're kind of trying to bridge the naming gap. But it looks cool. Definitely more of a side game though, so do keep that in mind. It's not a mainline entry. It's a spin-off game. But worthy of mentioning here. But of course, let's get into the actual award. Best Action Adventure Game.
Winner.
And the nomination for Best Action Adventure goes to... Gotta love that I'm doing my bit again.
Do that bit all night.
The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. If my fucking mouse can actually fucking work again. There we go. So, I mean, I had to concede with this one. This one, I actually do have to agree with the Game Awards on. Like, and a million people have already told you about like why Tears of the Kingdom is pretty good. But as far as what we're gonna say, the innovations on what, or not innovations, improvements on the previous game by reducing the weapon degradation, making it more easily accessible and like just generally easier to play. The varied environments and location, including the sky worlds, the Skylands, making it very exploration heavy. And honestly, this might be a hot take, but from what I can tell, this looks like it is the best gameplay in a 3D Zelda thus far. So I've got to give. I know I'm taking the knee. I'm bending the knee towards Nintendo on this one, but they do genuinely deserve it with this one. I think this is a worthy game to be. Yeah, this is a worthy nomination and winner, of course. So, do you have any consenting opinions or disagreements or anything else to say?
Oh no, I have to agree with you there because Tears of the Kingdom is a beautiful looking game. Some of the greatest visuals that we have gotten this year, and smooth to play. As you mentioned earlier, expanded greatly upon the universe of Hyrule, and I'm confident is going to be amongst some of the most talked about Zelda games.
Yeah, people.
Maybe not the best, but
yeah, like you gotta keep in mind, people still really fucking love Ocarina of Time, and
yeah, definitely not the best. But if we're talking, recent history in this gen.
Yeah, as far as like 9th gen go, okay, technically Switch I know is considered an 8th gen console, but like as far as like the current generation of games goes, yeah, no, this is pretty good. Though I will have to say, I think I slightly disagree with you on the visuals because I will admit the console is starting to show its age, because 7-year-old console by March of this year, so. Yeah, Nintendo, you gotta give us new hardware at some point. Like,
They'll work on it. They'll figure it out.
I hope so. Maybe. So that's my only dissent is like, you gotta be able to hopefully move on to the next thing. But let's not focus on that. That's a topic for another day. But anyways, let's move on to best role-playing game. This is where I have to be pretty blunt, honest, and this is
and make all of you hate him. This is where Slime makes all of you hate him.
Well, not like I wasn't hated before, but like, this is going to be a very sensitive topic, and this is going to be probably where my most controversial takes are going to be. So if you don't want to hear them, yes, I suggest you guys leave right the fuck now, because I'm gonna ruin. I'm gonna absolutely destroy one of the top games that people liked this year.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
I mean, whatever. So yeah, like, is everyone gone now? Like, you guys are all okay? Okay.
I don't hear any footsteps, so I think we're good.
Let's get into this. So, what was nominated for Best RPG for 2023? So, the nominees were Final Fantasy 16, Sea of Stars again, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and Lies of P. So, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I think, okay, with Starfield, that one's complicated because there's some people who are very diehard when it comes to Starfield. But, like, if I'm going to be honest, it's funny because originally this would have actually qualified for the list if we were doing this back in October. But I noticed that the user score started to go lower and lower and lower as the months went by. And I'm going to be honest, I don't hate Starfield. Like, I definitely think it's a much better game than Fallout 76 ever was. Like,
oh, definitely.
Like, I don't think anyone's going to fucking argue with me on that. Like,
I played Fallout 76 on launch. You don't have to tell me. You don't gotta tell me.
Yeah, so, like, as far as, like, that goes, like, I'm pretty sure most people are in that camp. But at the same time, I've noticed, like, a shift, like, when it comes to Starfield, like, yes, it's a better game, but I noticed that there was a bit of a shift after sort of the honeymoon period, as we're gonna call it.
Where, yeah, it seemed as once the hype kind of died down, maybe people just needed to play it after a while.
Yeah, because like because here's the thing, like, I remember, because I showed you the day that this game came out, I saw all the user reviews on both Metacritic and on Steam, and it was overwhelmingly positive. Like, I showed you the fucking I was actually shocked.
Yeah, same. I remember people talking about it.
Yeah, and just like
kind of joking. I remember us joking, kind of like how, like, you know, leave it to Bethesda to make like the one game that actually like works. It's not like a glitchy mess.
But unfortunately, as you know, the game went on, people started to pick it apart more and more, and the more that people looked at it, the worse that it got for a lot of people, and that sucks. That being said, I don't think it's. There's some people who are just who've been straight up saying that this is a bad game. I don't think it's a bad game.
Not bad.
But, like, it's still. I do have to agree that, like, yeah, it's more like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 at the end of the day. And I don't think it was really worth being nominated for, at least in hindsight, for Game Awards. As far as Lies of P and Final Fantasy 16 goes, yep, those are pretty easy. Sea of Stars, I'd even agree with that. Granted, slight spoiler alert for Sea of Stars. I did not nominate it for Best RPG, but I can see where people are coming from. So, and then we got Baldur's Gate 3.
Baldur's Gate. Oh boy.
Okay, let's just show what won Best RPG. Let's just get it out of the way. So, Baldur's Gate, spoiler alert, won Best role-playing game. But here's the thing. I actually do own the first 2 Baldur's Gate games on PC. Why? Because Baldur's Gate, I've known about it for actually a while, for like several years now. And granted, I haven't been able to get to them, but these, I don't know if you know this, but the first 2 Baldur's Gate games were actually originally made by BioWare. You know, same BioWare who made Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Knights of the Old Republic.
Classics.
Yeah, those games. Yeah, that was their first big IP. And because of that, and also because, you know, I am a huge fantasy fan and all that fun stuff, I wanted to get into at least sort of that sort of stuff, like that sort. And hell, even when this game was in early access, I was genuinely interested in it. Because, you know, it's a RPG sort of, I don't want to say Diablo style, but like, you know, it's taking quasi cues from Diablo, which makes sense because that's what the older games from the late 90s and early 2000s were like. And, you know, it was a top-down RPG. And considering that this is made by Larian Studios, same company that made the Divinity Original Sin games, which, from what I can tell, those games look really amazing. Like, so yeah, like, I respect at least that legacy of both what BioWare and Larian laid down. I do not have issues with either of, like, that.
So why do you...
So why am I acting very stingy right now? 2 phrases. Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. If you actually didn't know, Baldur's Gate is actually a sub-series within the Dungeons and Dragons franchise. And they're owned by Wizards of the Coast.
If you know anything about
if you know anything about Wizards of the Coast, they have been on a downward trend for the past 5-ish years, and it was ultimately ruined for me permanently because of this little
incident.
Yes, this little fucking stunt here. So, if you guys know anything about the Pinkertons, yes, they're not just a thing from Red Dead Redemption. They're an actual real fucking thing.
They are a real detective agent. They are detective agency that have been around before the FBI. And they are a very real thing, and they're still very much alive today. Unfortunately.
And they're fucking horrible people.
Yeah, they have their own terrible history.
Yes.
Like if you think like the FBI or the CIA or any other like government and like law enforcement agency has its shady past, the Pinkertons, their history is just straight up terrible.
Yeah, and okay, so basically, I don't want to get into like the specifics. Long story short, Wizards of the Coast also owns Magic the Gathering, which is like, you know, trade card game. And, well, someone was able to get the cards early. Obviously, I'm not condoning that. They should have done that. But at the same time, Wizards of the Coast basically hired a bunch of goons to go after his house, which I don't even... that's not even legal, by the way. I don't know why the fuck they were able to do that, because, like... They're not like police. That goes against multiple fucking laws.
They're private. They're a private organization.
Yeah, they're a private they're a private, like, basically like mercenary / hitman group.
Yeah, like, they're a private mercenary group. As unfortunate.
So,
as it is.
Unfortunately, because of that, I lost all fucking care for Baldur's Gate. because of this particular incident, and I don't fucking care what people say. This made me not want to touch Baldur's Gate 3 anymore.
You gotta have morals in this world, man.
Yeah, and I know, God, I'm really fucking asking people to go after me on this one. Jesus Christ.
Full disclaimer.
Now, okay, and here's...
If you
full
own,
disclaimer,
if you own Baldur's Gate,
if you like Baldur's Gate, that is completely fine. I'm not gonna
I have
shit
no
on
issue.
anyone who loves Baldur's Gate. As a matter of fact, from what I can tell, most people do actually like Baldur's Gate. But like, here's the difference between me and like fucking 90% of people. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm giving about, like, again, it's not me going after Larian Studios. They're amazing at their fucking craft. Like, they are very talented people. It's just a damn shame that they got their license from a piece of shit company.
Yeah,
and
that's what makes this sad, is that...
Yeah, that's what makes this fucking sad. And unfortunately, for someone like me, that's a step too far. Company, like, obviously, you know, we all make fun of companies like, you know, EA or Bethesda or Activision or Ubisoft for, you know, doing all the fucking bullshit, like, you know, exploiting their customers, adding in the loot boxes and shit, even in certain cases having a lot of, like, you know, harassment cases. Yeah. But this is what crosses the line for me. Like, when you actually do, like, you know, confirmed criminal shit too. This isn't an allegation. This is fucking true. It makes me not want to fucking be associated with it.
Yeah. So when it's stuff like this.
When it's stuff like that, and it's just sad because I wanted to get into this. But it's super hard for me too whenever there's that happening. So yeah, like, I'm sorry, but I can't in good faith give Baldur's Gate the fucking pass. And yes, I know there's gonna be a lot of fucking, when people find this, they're gonna have a lot of fucking opinions on this one. Jesus Christ. But just please at least recognize where I'm coming from. Just at least. It's the same case for fucking Hogwarts Legacy, by the way, which is, granted, that didn't get nominated on like that, but it's definitely not getting nominated here for similar reasons. I'm not going over that, but just look up J.K. Rowling's history. That's all you need to know. But anyways, so I'm sorry, but Baldur's Gate, I can't nominate it because of that. So how the hell do we handle this? Well, thankfully, there's actually a lot of other nominations I was able to choose that I thought looked pretty cool and interesting. So, great. Going from one infamous company to another.
What?
So, we got ourselves fucking Wild Hearts. So, this game came out in February. And this one kind of flew under a lot of people's radar. But, like, this game looks really fucking cool. Because it has, like, a very woodsy, high fantasy look to it. And, you know, it's kind of like, it's not really like a Souls-like game, but, like, looks like it's pretty vibrant. And, like, as far as, like, you know, its aesthetics and its gameplay, it looks pretty cool. And, well, it's obviously published by EA, so there's that going against it, to be fair.
Though we have just established that.
Yeah, we just have established that, like, yes, EA sucks, but, like, they don't fucking hire hitmen, or at least not to our knowledge.
They follow the rules. Yeah. Well, that's not really a good way to put it. They don't
fucking try to murder people in real life.
They don't do some Gilded Age shit.
Yeah, they don't do fucking, like, you know, shit from, like, the 1890s where it's, like, they, you know, in order for them to, like, go after people, they fucking, like, hire people. Obviously, that's me not defending EA. They're a shit company, too, but, like, they don't do that shit. They're terrible, but they're not that fucking terrible. But anyways, so yeah, Wild Hearts, it had a good enough score. I think it looked cool, and from what I can tell, people actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely more than the other high fantasy EA game that came out in like July, I think. So at the end of the day, worthy of a mention. And then we've got
Honorable mention.
Well, nomination. As far as
Honorable no.
it's not honorable nominees. These are nominees. Honorable mentions would not be on the list.
Honorable.
Anyways, next game.
I'm not smart. I'm not good at this.
Octopath Traveler 2. This game, I followed the first game. That game came out in 2018. Thought that game was amazing. Another 2D RPG that deserved a lot of its praise. Had a pretty cool story. Very similar to like old school Final Fantasy, which is what it was intentionally doing. It was trying to, rekindle the old school Final Fantasies. And, well, I think both it and its sequel did it really well. So, and it's also, I'm pretty sure I know the first one was published by Square Enix, which is insane nowadays because most of Square Enix's stuff like is terrible nowadays. But this is an exception. So I would recommend it. And yeah, check it out. Another RPG that like flew under a lot of people's radar, honestly, was Wolong Fallen. Yeah, like this was a good year for RPGs, honestly. Like, we haven't had a good year for RPGs since like 2011 or 12. So yeah, like this was a really good year for RPG. If you were an RPG fan, this was your fucking year. Which, speaking of course, another one, Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Another sort of, this one is definitely more of a Souls-like game, heavily inspired by Japanese and East Asian mythology. So, pretty cool. And at first, this one didn't actually initially sell well, which is, I think, why it wasn't nominated, but we're giving it recognition here. So, go check it out. You guys may thoroughly enjoy it, especially if you're a big Soulsborne fan. Granted, it's not the only Soulsborne game on the list. We'll get to that in a little bit, but it's worthy of at least a record, like, being talked about. As far as the next game goes, well, it's Final Fantasy 16. I mean, for most, it pretty much goes without saying for most Final Fantasies anyways, like this was going to be nominated. This one also was published by Square, of course, and well, it's another return to it's a return to form, but a good return to form. It's not like a buzzword return to form. Like, for what I can tell, people thoroughly, really liked Final Fantasy 16, especially since this returned to the classic, medieval fantasy of, older Final Fantasy games, like pre-Final Fantasy 6. So we haven't had a game like this since Final Fantasy 12. So it's good to see that, traditional fantasy can still be done, and,
modern era.
Yeah, in the modern era. And I appreciate that, because I love high fantasy. I just wish it was more popular, outside of fucking Skyrim. And then we've got another Soulsborne game called Lies of P, which this game was hyped quite a bit last year, and, well, it looked like it delivered. Honestly, I think this game looks like it, and plays really damn cool. Like, it's a very unique setting, too, because it's a Victorian steampunk horror dark fantasy sort of hybrid sort of like aesthetic, and you're basically playing as the P stands for Pinocchio. It's very loosely based off of that, but it takes more of the Brothers Grimm approach of that story, and
just the depressing aspect.
Yes, but they make it their own thing, and
people die.
Well, yeah, a lot of people fucking die. You're playing in an RPG, of course, that's gonna happen. But I think that as far as like original games go, and like original idea like ideas that are revitalized into original concepts, its aesthetics, as well as its gameplay, this looks like it's a worthy nomination here. And I understand why this game was nominated for the actual Game Awards. And then last but not least, I had to throw a bone to the Warhammer license somewhere.
Of course.
But as far as 40K games go, it's 40K Rogue Trader, based off of the original concept of Warhammer 40K back in the day, or the sub game, I should say. And this one also kind of plays similarly to what Baldur's Gate 3 or like even like not necessarily like a Diablo, but just sort of like a over top view RPG goes. And this came out pretty late. This came out actually last month, so it barely qualifies. But from what I could tell, most people actually do genuinely think this is a really good game, especially compared to many other 40K games, because I'm going to be real, most 40K games are not very good. This seems to be a very worthy exception, though. And so it was at least worthy of mentioning, especially since this would not have been able to be nominated by the actual Game Awards because of the cutoff time. But just wanted to give it a mention here. But enough RPG talk. We've talked about it for too long. Let's get into the actual nomination. So, Best RPG of 2023, at least according to me, because my opinion is the only one that matters. Not really, but just for the sake of the joke.
Narcissist.
So,
based on my narcissistic view of the world.
Okay. So, the best RPG game of 2023, according to the Caspian Game Awards, is...
according to our suggestive opinion, is...
Shit, I don't know why the mouse keeps going away. Okay. Lies of P! Lies of P won. This is what I would have nominated. Because, again, like I said earlier, it has a very unique aesthetic. It has, a pretty good imitation of the Soulsborne style of gameplay and combat system. And, again, it is a revitalized idea made into an original... it's not ripping anything off. It's an original idea, which is something that I always advocate for.
It's original.
Yeah, and I think ultimately most people who are huge RPG fans would agree that this is, as far as third person RPGs goes, this is a pretty damn good one. So, good game. So, but enough RPG talk. We were on this category for too long.
For a game about lies, it's surprisingly genuine.
Yes, but let's move on to the shooter game category, which, funny enough, they actually did not have a shooter game category for this year. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, if I'm going to be honest, though. Let's just say that as far as mainstream shooter games go, there weren't a lot of AAA or AA shooter games that came out, and unfortunately, the ones that got a lot of a lot of press and a lot of hype, it was not worth the hype. I mean, I can go on a million reasons as to why Modern Warfare 3 2023, was made. It was made fun of at the Game Awards. The hosts literally gave it so much shit. It was that bad.
That bad.
But also, here's the most unfortunate one. So obviously, you guys know, throughout this week, I was streaming a lot of Payday 2.
No.
And yes, unfortunately, I'm still trying to, lick the wounds of the fact that Payday 3 launched like absolute fucking shit, and they not only me, but this man disappointed too. Like, it was sad to see. Like, as far as like,
It was just a sad day.
yeah, as far as like, the games that did get a lot of coverage, they did not deliver, unfortunately. That being said, as far as the smaller studio crowd, I was able to actually pick out some amazing games, if I'm going to be honest. Like, this wasn't a completely doom and gloom year. Yeah, it wasn't a completely doom and gloom year for shooter games. So, there were actually a lot of diamonds in the rough. And these are the nominations that we're going to give. And by the way, keep in mind, this is not just talking about first-person shooters. This is also counting third-person shooters. So
we got Hurt.
Yeah, we got Herat again, because I think that game was really damn good. We got another 40k game. Yeah, 40k Bolt Gun.
Tripang 2.
Armored
Core. Fires of Republic. Armored Core 4.
No, it's Armored Core 6. Fires of Rubicon. Where the fuck did you see Republic?
And Ready or Not.
Yes, Ready or Not. So, we already talked about Herat and why that's an amazing game. Let's talk about the others. So, 40k Bolt Gun. Whereas Herat was a modernized Quake clone, 40k Bolt Gun is a Warhammer-themed Doom clone that got a lot of attention back in May, and it's worthy of a lot of that attention. Especially since this is kind of a spiritual sequel to 40k Space Marine, which I played a couple of years ago. And yeah, no, it's definitely worthy of being recognized as, a really good shooter game from this year. It's kind of weird that, yes, there's two 40k games that got nominated twice here, but I guess that is just it just goes to show that, like, this was a decent year for 40k, especially since, 10th edition came out this year for 40k, so makes sense. But yeah, as far as like that goes, really good. I would recommend it. You know what else I would also recommend? That this game is this was a bit of a sleeper hit. Tripang 2. No, this is actually not a sequel as the title would suggest. This is actually the first game. I know naming confusing.
Weird.
I think it's actually supposed to be said Tripang squared. Yeah.
Well,
so
why is it squared?
Because you basically play this like as if you played it as probably because you play it just like you do in like Fear.
So it's a math game.
It's not a math game. It's a game that takes a lot of cues from like Fear from 2005. The game that allowed you to be like John Woo and Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. Exactly. Shooting a bunch of clones and shit. Yeah, this game was basically a spiritual successor to that, because let's be real, the last Fear game that was released back in 2011, no one fucking liked. So, but people still liked the aspects of the older games. So this came out, and truth be told, this game was pretty fun and a sort of worthy mention as far as like more arcadey military shooters go. It's technically not really a military shooter. It's more of a mercenary shooter, but you get the point. But I thought it was pretty.
Private army, public army, same thing.
Like whatever. It's a good. Honestly, as far as shooter games from this year goes, like it's honestly pretty unique. We haven't had a game like this since Fear 2, like fucking 17 years ago or whatever the fuck that last game came out. 15 years ago, actually. So, yeah, I would recommend this if you want a more different approach to that style of game. And then we've got Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, the only third-person shooter on the list, but pretty damn good one. So obviously this is continuing off of 2013's Armored Core 5 sort of sequel thingy, whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah, whatever it is.
But this game looks like it's pretty like genuine fun. Granted, I don't really play a lot of like mech games as often. Like the closest thing I've gotten to play something like this is, Titanfall 2, but even then that plays nothing like this. This one's purely a mech third-person shooter combat game. But it looks like it's pretty fun. And no, this is not something like Dark Souls, despite it being made by From Software. This is a more traditional third-person shooter.
This game is not going to make you want to...
Yeah, the game's not going to make you fucking pissed if you play it.
This game's not going to make you want to, eat your controller.
Yeah, this is a much more relaxed game. And, well, honestly, it deserves recognition as being a pretty fun action shooter that, frankly, we haven't had, these types of games in a while. And also, the multiplayer looks like it's a lot of fun. And there's no microtransactions. So there's a bonus. Yeah, there's a bonus right there.
That's not financially feasible. You can't do that.
Well, From Software was able to. And you know what other game was able to do that with without microtransactions?
Not one.
Ready or not? A return to form of old school Rainbow Six and SWAT games. This is the game that I've honestly wanted since SWAT 4. This... Yeah,
I've been asking for a more a tactical SWAT-themed shooter for this era of gaming for over a decade.
Yes, because Rainbow Six Siege went into the more, competitive multiplayer, PvP sort of thing. And while obviously you guys have seen, I played that before, and I don't think that game is inherently bad. It's just not my thing. I think I've gotten to the point where I prefer a more cooperative or just straight up single player experience. And thankfully this game offers all three of those. So, and as far as breaching, the sort of CQB breaching and clearing goes, this is really damn good. Granted, I only was able to play this once because there was a free weekend that was on Steam a while back, but
man, oh man,
it was great. So, but yeah, no, worthy of of a nomination. And it's kind of sad that this one, because again, it's another. Again, this is, if I'm going to be honest, another reason why I'm doing this series is to bring people attention to original ideas too, or at least newer IPs, because that's what we need right now. And well, yeah. But anyways,
remakes and sequels are inherently bad, but
sequels, prequels, and remakes and remasters, they're not bad, but I want to promote the idea of newer games too. But anyways,
I'm tired of people walking around saying that we've run out of ideas.
Yeah, because we have not. So, and again, even though a lot of these games are revitalized, they are heavily inspired, they're not copying. There's a difference. So
it's a fine line sometimes, but there is a difference.
But anyways, let's get into the award. Oh shit, I didn't
do the thing.
I didn't do the thing. God damn it. Okay, so there, it's a fresh envelope. Totally not. Yeah. Anyways, so best shooter game of the year. The award of 2023 goes to Ready or Not. Obviously, I already said this was the game I've wanted for a long time. Because the last type of this game that we had that got this amount of coverage was back in 2005 with SWAT 4. Every other tactical shooter that has been made has basically been an open combat tactical shooter.
Almost
And that's not a
20
bad...
years ago.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. As a matter of fact, like, I do like some of those games. Like, I would be lying to you if I said that I did not like Arma. Or shit, even something like Insurgency and Insurgency Sandstorm. Like, I do thoroughly enjoy those games. But if I'm going to be honest, my favorite type of tactical shooters was the old school Rainbow Six games and SWAT 4, where they were more
grounded type, like tactical
shooters. No, all tactical shooters are grounded. Like, it's just, for me, I prefer the close quarters combat, room to room clearing style of tactical shooter that is way more just tight. Because, and what makes this one stand out is, well, I mean, first of all, we haven't had a game like this in several decades. Granted, there is 0 Hour as well, but that game is that one's an indie game. I'd say that one's also a really good one too. But as far as like what we're talking about here, Ready or Not hits all the marks in my mind. The CQB scenarios, the amount of customization, and the amount of tools at your disposal for each mission. The different types of buildings and locations that you go to, because you go to a hospital, you go to a nightclub, you go to a church, you go to all that shit. And the fact that this game has the single player, multiplayer, and co-op options so that you can play by yourself, with a friend, or fighting against each other. It's amazing. Like, I wish more games had all three of those options with each other. And although this isn't necessarily a factor in the award, the fact that this game has the ability for people to make mods and community created content is amazing.
Any game that supports a strong modding community that is very open towards that is always going to be good in my book, especially in recent years, as a lot of AAA companies have been cracking down on modders.
Yeah, companies like Blizzard and Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft.
They're like Activision Blizzard,
hate
Ubisoft,
the
Rockstar
idea.
Games.
They hate the idea of
that's going to cut into our profit margin.
Yeah, but I have to be frank and be like, no, that's not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, it helps keep your game alive.
Keeps your game alive. Look at Gmod. That game is...
Yeah, that game is fucking... the oldest version of Gmod is literally going to be 20 years old by the end of this year. Yet people still fucking play... There's still tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people still playing Gmod. It's insane.
There's people playing Gmod who weren't alive when it first came out.
Yeah, that's insane. And so, I am someone who has to step their foot down and say, no, community content is not a bad thing. And I'm very happy that the people who worked on this recognize that and openly accept it. It also helps that a lot of the SWAT 4 and Rainbow Six 3 maps were already remade in this game due to the modders. So that's some bonus points right there.
You can relive some old memories.
Yeah. But yeah, let's move on to a different type of, strategy. Let's talk about simulation and strategy games. So,
oh boy, my favorite.
Yeah, this is your category.
This is my category.
Well, maybe not necessarily the strategy part, but definitely the sim part.
Yeah, it was the strategy. I like strategy games.
So, but yeah, let's look at the nominations that were from the Game Awards.
It better not be trash.
It's pretty trash, honestly. Okay. I'm just gonna go off a limb and say this. I love City Skylines 1. It's become one of my personal favorite games of all time. Honestly, I think that it's one of the best, if not the best, city builder that's ever been released. And I think that the fact that that game has a huge modding community and had even official support for it for such a long time, I think that's absolutely amazing. And, Colossal Order deserve recognition for what they were able to achieve with that game.
So when news came out of a sequel.
No. Company Heroes 3 also it was is from a series that I really respect. Company Heroes 1, I think, is one of the best RTS games ever made. Like, it obviously, continued off the success of Dawn of War and not Planet Side, the other one. Fuck, I can't think of it. The space one. I'm sorry, I can't think of it off the top of my Homeworld. That's what it's called.
Homeworld.
I hella respect Company of Heroes and its sequel because I think that those are some of the best RTS games of all time. Go and play City Skylines 1 and Company Heroes 1 and 2 right now.
But why not? Why are you saying playing the first ones? Why aren't you saying that we play the sequel?
Because both of these games launched like absolute trash. It was actually awful.
In much of the same way that it breaks our hearts to say that Payday 3 launched terribly, City Skylines 2 and Company Heroes 3 also launched terribly.
Yeah, they launched terribly, but here's the part that even sucks more. With City Skylines 2, there's a lot of removed features from the first game. So,
such as?
Well, first of all, no modding community, no Steam Workshop support. Yeah, no Steam Workshop support at launch. Yeah, that's a huge one right there.
Ouch. Owie. Ouch.
But here's another big blow with City Skylines 2. A lot of the laws that you can make, stuff like banning, certain things like recycling and like pets and all that fun stuff. You can't do that. Edicts. Yeah, they don't exist in City Skylines 2. They just are just not a thing.
Not a thing.
You can't control how each. Actually, shit. There's not even the ability to make districts in.
What?
Yeah, that's just
cool.
Yeah, no, that's just not a thing.
No, I just gotta pretend.
Yes, now you gotta play pretend and say like, oh, okay, I guess this part of the city, I'm just gonna pretend.
Like the Chinatown part, and this is the beach town, and this is like
that's
mansion.
Yeah, that's not a thing in Skylines 2. They removed that.
What is this? What is this? A video game from the 70s? I gotta pretend.
Yes.
I guess it is now.
So yeah, basically they removed features and then they charged up the price. Originally, City Skylines came out. Yeah, because I'm gonna check right now how much this game costs. Because when City Skylines came out, it only costed $30. City Skylines 2, $50.
Oh. They lost their way.
Yes.
They lost their way hard.
It hates.
Pains
us to say. Me to say, but
they just saw all those zeros and just couldn't control themselves.
Now, as for that was a fucking.
They became the villain. They did what fucking EA did with SimCity 5. Basically.
It's not that bad. Like, it's nowhere near that fucking bad. Because, like, at least this game fucking works. That game didn't even fucking work at launch. Because of the stupid, like, always online DRM. Thankfully, this game. Though. But unfortunately, it's unfortunate to see another Titan in the simulation genre just straight up neglect. Devolve. And as for Company Heroes 3, it makes me feel painful to see that Relic has also devolved. And this was notable since Dawn of War 3. That game was a complete shell of the first two already, and
show his former self.
to see Company Heroes 3 continue that trend makes me feel very sad. And again, if both of these games were amazing or maybe not amazing, but very good at launch at the very least, I would actually be I would be happy for them to have been nominated. I would have agreed. But I can't in good faith. I cannot in good conscience say that these were good nominations for this year. I just can't. And that adds a little bit of a gunshot to me in the chest, because I fucking love I fucking love City Skylines 1, and I really love Company Heroes 1 too.
I fucking love City Builders.
But
those are some of the first games I had ever played, like as a small child. Some of the first games I'd ever gotten into.
Yeah, and it pains me to say that this was definitely not the year for.
That's something you want your kids to grow up with. Unless your kids really like paying for, content that,
paying more for less.
Yeah, unless you like having your kids pay more for less.
So, but yeah, that was a fucking disaster.
Your children to grow up to make bad financial decisions.
But anyways, next game, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, made by Way Forward. People who made Shantae. So obviously I have high respects for them, but there's a problem. This is a remake of 2 games, not just 1. So it doesn't technically count, unfortunately. Or at least for this nomination. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then as for the other 2, I mean, Fire Emblem Engage, that's fine. That's the only one that I don't have a disagreement with on. As far as Pikmin 4, I know a lot of people were excited for it, but again, kind of like with Spider-Man, it's just not really my thing. It's just not really like the vibes that I personally am for. If you like Pikmin 4, that's completely fine. I know that this took a long damn time to get released, and I'm happy for you guys, but it's just not what I'm looking for when it comes to strategy games. It barely even counts as a strategy game, too. That's the thing. Because, it's kind of... Okay, it's not really like it, but, it's kind of like Dynasty Warriors in the sense that, all the little, small things follow you around.
Little Pikmins.
But, the Pikmin, they follow you around. And, you could somewhat command them, but it's very limited. It's... I don't want to call it bare bones, because, that's kind of mean. But, it's not what, I'm thinking of when I think of, strategy games. But you know what's worse?
You know what's worse?
That's the game that won.
Oof.
So... yeah, this year was pretty fucking dire, at least when it came to...
strategy and simulation.
Well, at least strategy and simulation that got a lot of attention, because there was actually a lot of games...
There were some snubs this year.
There were a lot of snubs. So, and we're gonna give them the proper respect right fucking now.
We're gonna give them some love.
So, Fire Emblem Engage is the only one that I'm fine keeping. It's a fine strategy game. I think that it's worthy. As far as all the other strategy games, though, I can't in good conscience recommend them. Or at least definitely not Company Heroes or... okay, City Skylines 2 is not a strategy game, but you get it.
Simulation, but yeah.
Simulation. But there is actually one other simulation game that I was able to find that I think is worthy of at least a mention. Everspace 2. The sequel to 2017's Everspace. This is a sort of space flight simulation roguelike game. But, unlike most roguelikes, I actually like this one. I liked the original, and I think with the sequel they were able to expand on it in a pretty extraordinary way.
You like the roguelike?
Yeah, because I'm just gonna be frank, I usually hate roguelikes. I just hate the idea of just going through an entire game only for you to have to do the whole thing over again. I hate that mechanic so
Yeah,
fucking
I don't.
much.
Permadeath and like.
But with this
That
one,
kind of
this one actually does it very differently. Because while your ship physical upgrades do go away, all of your power-ups stay. It takes the Hades approach, where it's like you don't completely lose everything.
Or something like how Dead Rising games are, kind of like if you restart your game, you can still keep your progress and your level.
Exactly. And you know,
you have it. So you may have it. So you might. So if you die, your first time around is going to be pretty difficult. But if you die, it's going to suck. But at least your next couple times around are going to be easier.
yeah, they're gonna get better. And similar to something like Hades, you are able to upgrade on like a menu screen. And so again, you don't lose everything. As a matter of fact, the more upgrades, permanent upgrades you get, the stronger you're able to get into the game and the farther you'll go. And I like that mechanic. I am glad that more roguelikes are implementing stuff like that. I know the fucking diehard roguelike community fucking hates that, but they can suck an egg. But okay, that's mean. But I'm more in camp with this style of roguelikes. And again, this qualifies because this is a space flight sim, so it loosely counts, but I'm counting it just for the sake of that. And I just wanted to give it a mention. So, but yeah, other games. Age of Wonders 4, grand strategy series, been around since the late 90s. Okay, more turn-based, but whatever. And, well, continuing off the legacy of the Age of Wonders series, it's pretty good. Returning to the fantasy setting of, the older games, because Planetfall was a sci-fi sort of spin-off. Not that was bad. I don't think there's any Age of Wonders games that people would say is inherently bad, actually. But as far as, turn-based fantasy, grand scale strategy games go, pretty good. Another licensed game that actually came out of nowhere and was a bit of a surprise, Aliens Dark Descent. Sort of an XCOM-y sort of game. And well, truth be told, I really, really like XCOM style games, so obviously this is worthy of a mention. And it's Alien. Like, I wouldn't say I'm in love with the Alien, like, license, but I like it. It's one of the few horror. It's one of the few horror things I am willing to admit that I actually genuinely like. It's one of the few horror movie franchises I'm willing to admit I actually like. So, and well, as far as like games go, yeah,
pretty good.
And then we got Jagged Alliance 3, which is a okay, this one's also sort of okay, yeah, it's also sort of a XCOM, but it's done in real time. So whenever your characters are moving, everyone else is moving. So but it has a pretty cool aesthetic. It's like a Cold War aesthetic sort of thing. Actually, funny enough, the last game came out, I think, in like 2010 or something, but this is actually the direct sequel to a game from 1999.
Wow.
So this is the first direct sequel in that series. But they had sequels throughout the 2000s. It's just this is the first direct sequel in a long time. And honestly, looks really fucking amazing. Looks really fun. And it helps that it's made by the same studio who made Tropicos 3, 4, and 5. So
hell yeah. Love those games.
Yeah, Heymanon, I think is how you pronounce it. So, and then lastly, we've got Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, which is kind of a similar concept, except this one is a bit more of a stealth style. So this is a stealth XCOM style of game, which is very unique. Not many games are like that, but really cool aesthetic, pirate themed. Don't get too many pirate games out there, let alone many good ones. But this one looks like it's a very standout game, and I think this is their studio's second game. So if this is their second game, then I'm hoping that
hopefully they have a bright future.
Yep. Gotta support your, smaller AA and indie devs. But those are the nominations for sim and strategy games. Let's get into the winner. So the winner for best sim/strategy game goes to, and I'm seeing the time, we're taking a little bit longer because we're talking. Goes to Jagged Alliance 3. So, I mean, frankly, truth be told, this was a worthy return of, a franchise that, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't even hear of until of this game. Which I guess makes sense because, my age.
1999.
Yeah, but whatever. But as far as, gameplay goes, I think that, that sort of, real-time XCOM looks pretty awesome. It adds for more fast-paced and intense combat scenarios. There's also a huge, deep, progression system for all of your hired mercenaries. And it helps that you can hire, between, a roster of, 40 of them, I think.
The good kind of mercenaries.
Yeah, and so because of that, as well as just that Cold War aesthetic, this got snubbed hard. I don't know why the hell this didn't get nominated at fucking all.
This is like facelift 1990 Grammys level snub.
Yeah, this got snubbed hard. I mean, granted, if I'm gonna be honest, Everspace 2, I'd say the biggest snubs for sure was Age of Wonders 4 and Jagged Alliance and Everspace 2. I have no idea why the fuck those were ignored. I'm telling you, this sim strategy nomination, these nominees for the actual Game Awards, were really fucking bad. I have no idea what the fuck they were doing here. So,
what were they thinking?
Yeah, what the hell were they thinking? But let's go multiplayer. Let's go co-op.
Yay.
So, what did they nominate for multiplayer? Baldur's Gate 3 again. But I've already had my whole spiel on that, so
we've discussed this before. Don't need to again.
Yeah, but guess what else was also nominated? But I think most people would actually agree with me that this is stupid. Diablo 4.
Diablo 4.
No. Just no.
I do not understand.
Granted, okay. Did it have a better launch than Diablo 3? Yes.
Yeah.
Does it have the same depth as Diablos 1 and 2? No.
Yes.
No.
No.
What do you mean? Basically, the problem with... Okay, first of all, fuck Blizzard. We're anti-Blizzard in this household. Yeah, we're anti-Blizzard in this fucking household. But even just besides Blizzard, this is just the biggest representation of greed over gameplay. They took a lot of the shit that people hated from Diablo Immortal and doubled down and put that shit into Diablo 4, making it to where there's a lot of the infamous time savers that are usually associated with Ubisoft games, but nope, this is Activision Blizzard.
Decided to take a page out of.
Yeah, they took a page from Ubisoft, and they decided, you know what, we're gonna make the game super, super grindy, and not give as much experience as we did in previous games. So, how
You're
about...
right. We should make our games shitty.
So yeah, like... God, this is so embarrassing if I'm gonna be honest. Like...
You should be ashamed of yourself, Blizzard.
Yeah, like,
Amongst
again,
many others.
another... it just goes on and on and on with Blizzard. They have been, like... They have become just the absolute villains of gaming.
Gaming and just like they just can't do anything right.
Yeah,
lately.
Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, World of Warcraft 3 Reforged, Diablo 2 Resurrected, like fucking a lot of the World of Warcraft expansions. They just can't stop fucking up.
They just can't catch a fucking break. And honestly, it's not even like they kind of deserve it, considering that all of these pitfalls are
Jeez.
willing. They're willingly jumping off cliffs, so to speak.
And pissing off not all of your fan bases too. The only fan base you have not pissed off yet was StarCraft. But just fucking wait, StarCraft fans. You will get a fucking piece of that shit by too. Like in the next, I guarantee you, next 4 years. Like if they haven't pissed them off yet, they're going to piss off the StarCraft fans. And you don't fucking piss off the StarCraft fans. They are fucking brutal. So, but yeah, as far as the other games go, yep, Mario Brothers Wonder was also nominated, which, I mean, it's more for its co-op, which, I mean, fair. And, well, like I said at the beginning of the stream, Street Fighter 6, yes, that was nominated actually at the Game Awards, but, well, I mean, because people apparently hate it more than Mortal Kombat 1.
Don't like it.
Yeah, because people don't like it, we can't nominate it. And then, well...
Thanks a lot, people.
Last but not...
a lot, general audiences.
But last but not least, the other game, Party Animals, I mean, it's just not... Like, if you like cutesy animal stuff, that's fine. It's just not really for me.
I like cute animal stuff.
Oh, by the way, fucking Baldur's Gate 3 won this as well.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like
yeah,
that.
let's fix this. So
we must fix.
So Jagged Alliance 3 is going to be a nomination here as well as Armored Core 6, as well as Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Ready or Not. All those are getting multiplayer nominations because, well, they have multiplayer support. They even Ready or Not and Jagged Alliance 3, they have co-op support, so which is always great. But
yeah.
You know what? We said that we actually somewhat liked racing games, but because the category that they were supposed to be in, literally no other game was able to be nominated. Like, there weren't enough games to be nominated for. If I'm going to be honest, we're going to throw a bone at them. Let's throw a bone at Forza and The Crew. Because I kind of feel bad, if I'm going to be honest.
I feel bad for the racing community, the racing game community.
Yeah, this is my apologies to you guys, because with Forza Motorsport, granted, I heard it's not as good as Horizon 5, or even the more recent Motorsport from, I think it was Motorsport 7?
I believe so.
It was sort of, again, it's called Forza Motorsport. It's not a remake. It's not a remaster. It's actually a reboot. It's a completely new game. It's not any of that. So it counts for this. So for anyone wondering. But as far as racing games go, yes, it does look like it's more so closer to the middle of the pack in that franchise, but it's still a worthy sequel, if that makes sense. And it looks like that, generally speaking, a lot of people do actually like it. So, though people, from what I can tell, do have some concerns with Not necessarily the fact that there was like a lot of content removed, but just like a few game modes removed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's concerning people, and that makes sense. Now, that being said, as far as games that I was actually... Oh, shoot, wrong button. As far as games that like I was genuinely surprised about that a lot of people actually liked, apparently a lot of people liked the Crew Motorfest.
I mean, I was always more into the street racing games as opposed to the more like race car sport type stuff.
Yeah, like stuff like Need for Speed, right?
Yeah, because I personally just find like sports racing kind of boring. Because
Yeah.
it's just people going around in a circle for like 2 hours.
Well, I guess you're more.
I
guess you kind of are more
breaking
into like the
law.
Crew then, because that's basically what it is.
I like breaking the law. I like crime. That includes vehicular related crimes.
By the way, I've always had this take. I've always thought that the Crew was a really dumb name.
The Crew? Why?
It's just a dumb name.
It's a little generic, but
It's
like
so basic. It's a basic ass name. Like,
there's a difference between basic and dumb.
Well, that's why it's dumb. Because like, also, what is it supposed to be referring to? It's like, oh, it's my crew, man. Like,
family. Yeah, my crew, homie.
God,
He's my homie.
it's so dumb.
My crew.
Like,
I like the word homie.
Okay, to be fair though, this one's again, I'm giving a little bit of a bone to both the racing crowd because it did not feel right for us to completely ignore them, and also to be fair, it looks like their multiplayer offerings for both of these games look pretty cool. That being said, I've only been starting to get into racing games because of a certain
someone.
But
you got a lot to learn.
We don't have to talk about that right now. But point is that like,
but we will.
The Crew Motorfest. Yes, I will always complain about the Crew being a generically dumb name, but at the end of the day, I will admit Motorfest at least looks like it's interesting, especially since it's a racing game on a Caribbean island, I think, or like Pacific Island or something, which that's actually pretty unique. I don't know many other like games that do that. Most games just kind of race in like the US, Europe,
New York,
or like
LA,
Japan,
Chicago, or Japan.
So, or like South Korea,
or Miami, South Korea, or like Miami.
So I'll give them props for doing something a bit more unique.
Unless you're playing Cruising World, then you cruise the world.
So, but multiplayer nomination. Let's get into the winner of this.
The winner.
So, I gotta do my fucking bit again because I think it's funny.
Gotta do the funny thing.
All right. And so the winner of Best Multiplayer Game of 2023
goes to
Ready or Not.
As I expected, I can read you like a book. I expected, but still explain.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna repeat myself if I explain. Basically, what I said earlier is the same exact reason why it's winning, though more so on the fact that this is a multiplayer and cooperative game. So, at the end of the day, like, yeah. And again, just the fact that there's so much, community support and content support is just something that you have to at least give it props for that. Like, no other, like, most game companies don't do that shit anymore. And to see a game company do that is awesome.
As we've established with City Skylines too.
Yeah, so you gotta give credit. But let's move on to the next thing. Oh, this one's gonna be a spicy one.
Oh.
Best DLC/expansion.
Oh.
So
Oh,
He's having a field day because he fucking knows. He already knows.
the emotional damage is
Like
coming back.
he already okay. Here's the thing. I didn't tell him a single fucking like one of these rankings, but he probably knows which one's gonna fucking win this one.
I've known you long enough to make a sound prediction as to what I think is going to win, judging by some conversations we've had when this certain thing had come out.
But
and by
anyways,
watching your streams.
anyway, no, don't spoil it. Don't.
I was gonna say I'm kind of spoiling it for anyone who's aware.
But anyways, so let's calm ourselves right now, and let's be reasonable heads right now.
Let's be adults right now.
Yeah, don't be a child, Goldie. Don't be a child.
We are grown men. Let's act like it.
But best DLC / expansion. Honestly, I'm actually kind of surprised this is not a category either, especially since like, you know,
DLCs are pretty big. A lot of work goes into those too.
Yeah, a lot of work gets into there. There's a lot of DLCs that are more popular than the base game itself, and like I feel like this year was actually a pretty decent year for DLC in general. And honestly, because of one of the categories that we're going to be talking about later has a DLC as a fucking nominee, it feels wrong to not have. It just does not feel right to.
Yeah, it feels weird to not.
But that being said, this is kind of the only sort of category where it's kind of breaking the 75% Metacritic score, only because that no Metacritic score, like Metacritic scores rarely ever cover DLCs. I just kind of looked up to see what the general consensus for what people liked with DLCs / expansions, and that's what we'll be doing here. So
noted.
Let's get into this. So, real. Okay. Dead Cells. Return to Castlevania. So, Dead Cells came out in 2017. This is the most recent expansion. It adds a bunch of Castlevania content, basically making the game into Symphony of the Night. I think Dead Cells looks pretty cool. It's a Metroidvania, so makes sense with Castlevania. And well, yeah, it's pretty cool. Get to play as Simon and not Richter, Trevor Belmont. So that's pretty cool. You get to fight Dracula as well as Death, and basically just have a fun time basically playing what Konami should have done fucking 5, 6, 7 years ago, but they don't want to make another game.
Konami is Konami.
Yeah, Konami is Konami. They don't want to make another Castlevania game after what they did with Lords of Shadow 2, and that makes me sad. But at least we got something out of Castlevania in a game, and it was really good. So there's that. And then we got Cult of the Lamb. Massive indie game that popped up last year. Of course, it got a lot of attention when it came out, and so naturally there was an expansion made for it called Relics of the Old Faith. This was I think this was actually like a standalone story, but it basically added like a bunch of new content. It added like new enemies, it added new ritual types, new building types. Like it was like a proper expansion, like actual like not like small DLC bullshit. Like this was an expansion, which is something that
I am.
Yeah, well, actually, to be fair, Castlevania was like that too. Like these are both expansion packs, and that's respectable. And as far as like Cult of the Lamb goes, I respect it. I know there's for those who don't know, there's a fucking joke between me and Goldie about just how much cults are a bit of a trope in video games. Yeah. But like, as far as like this goes, like I think, again, I usually don't like roguelikes. This is another exception. Again, The exceptions to the rule of roguelikes for me would be Everspace, Hades, and Cult of the Lamb. Those are the exceptions of the roguelikes. Not even Risk of Rain was able to get to me for much long. I started not liking it after a while. So yeah, those are the only three. Those are the only three fucking roguelikes I like. So don't fucking go at me on that. So So yeah, no, Cult of the Lamb, good DLC. Hey, how about I not try to cry right now?
Can we just do this really fast? Just do this very quickly.
Okay, fine. Yes, I know people fucking didn't like Secured Reach when it came out, but there was a DLC that came out that was 2.5 hours long. I played it. Go watch it. You guys will. Let's just say I had a bit of a moment. But as far as DLCs go, honestly, it genuinely really surprised me. I was not expecting this out of a Five Nights at Freddy's thing. At all. I thought it was just gonna... If I'm gonna be honest, I thought this was gonna be more of a... sort of... I don't know, just kind of a short... Okay, well, it is short, but just not really story-driven thing. I just thought it was just gonna be another cheap jump scare thing, but no. It added a lot of cool new mechanics, and a lot of cool, interactability stuff, and, well... I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's cover the last ones before I get ahead of myself. Final Fantasy XVI, Echoes of the Fallen. Yes, this is technically a game that already released last year, but it received a DLC last month, and a lot of people thoroughly enjoyed it. This is the first wave of DLC for Final Fantasy XVI. There's bound to be plenty to come out later this year, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, there was God of War Ragnarok Valhalla. That was another game that got huge waves not last year, 2022. And, even though I'm not a big fan of some of the more modern PlayStation exclusives, I will admit what they've done with God of War, as far as that, I think they've done much better with than other certain exclusives that I shall not name. And looks like Valhalla was definitely a worthy continuation of the Ragnarok story. So that's pretty cool. So, still there?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, it's just you're kind of quiet. But anyways.
I'm just letting you speak.
But yeah. Alright, let's get this out of the way.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be a very controversial pick. But I don't care. It's my show.
It's our show. It's your show.
So,
just get this over with.
All right. So, the best DLC/expansion of 2023, and definitely the not most controversial thing on this entire thing is.
Well, no, it's not, because we already had our talk about Blizzard stuff.
Well, that
Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, fucking. Yeah, this is nothing compared to what I'm gonna get shit for with Baldur's Gate 3. Anyways, it should be pretty obvious what it is, but I don't care. I'm doing the bit. Anyways. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, Ruin. I'm just as shocked as everyone who's watching this.
Yeah, real fucking... What a real, real fucking...
All you need to know about this is watch my stream. I have it saved in a playlist. This was one of the few times I've ever cried in a game.
All we're gonna say.
I've only ever cried with 4 games, period. Those being Sly 2, or not Sly 2, Sly 3, Halo 3, Silent Hill 2, and this is number 4. You might think that, wait, this is FNAF, that's not really emotional. You will be shocked.
The answer will shock you.
I'm being serious. Like, as granted, it hurt a little bit more because of a certain character that I may or may not like, but that's the point. Point is this was a vast improvement on the base game, and at the end of the day, this is where I want the series to continue, and I just want more of this type of stuff to continue within the FNAF franchise. So at the end of the day, yes, could you say that Relics of the Old, like, you know, the Cult of the Lamb or Dead Cells is better technically? Yes, I would definitely agree with you there.
I would,
but
and
based
even though,
but based off of principle, I had to put this as the best DLC/expansion. Again, there's very few moments in any game that make me that emotional. Very
I know
few.
you're gonna be somewhat upset at me for this, but like, yeah, I would have to. I like this, but of course I have to disagree, and maybe it's just because that seeing this DLC does kind of make me emotional, and it makes me sad. And in some ways it's a good sad, but in other ways it's a bad sad. So I kind of, I would put something like Call of the Lamb into this category.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with you there, but because it's my show, I can do whatever I want.
It's your award.
So, but yeah, let's not dwell on the sadness right now. Let's go to a different type of sadness. Remakes and remasters.
All right, come on. That's not completely sad. That is not completely sad.
It's not completely sad, but it's sad to me that people rely more on remakes than like original titles.
It is sad to me.
It is sad to me. But anyways, to be fair, this was also this year was the year of RPGs. This was also the year of remake/remasters. If you if you wanted like a new revitalized game like from the past, this was your year.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
And let's and again, this is not another this is another non-category that again, they just don't have the proper categories. But anyways, this is the category where we have Resident Evil 4.
Finally.
So this is where we're ranking all of like this stuff. So Resident Evil 4 and Advance Wars 1 and 2, like Reboot Camp, those qualify for this because those are old games that already existed that were really damn good. So I've got to give respect. Resident Evil 4, of course, whenever the remake came out, everyone loved it. Arguably as much, if not more, than the Resident Evil 2 remake. It was that damn good.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only survival horror remake that was really damn good this year. Dead Space also was remade, and it was really damn good. And as someone who streamed the original game back in 2020 and thought it was really good, it's awesome to see them, go back to that classic. Granted, I will admit, the original actually still holds up, but if you want a different enough experience with, more smoothed out controls, a different layout of the ship, and, even some new enemies, Dead Space Remake is definitely for you. Though, I would definitely recommend either for you guys to start off with when it comes to Dead Space. It's that damn good.
Damn.
So, yeah. And again, even though we didn't qualify Advance Wars 1 and 2 for the Sim strategy, we qualified it for here, mostly because, admittedly, I actually am a fan of the War series. I mean, you saw me play the Super Famicom Wars.
You do like War.
Well, I like the Wars series. Not the stupid GameCube game. That game sucks ass. But as far as Advanced Wars 1 and 2 goes, the remake, really good. And I have to commend Way Forward. Like, they know how to push the way forward for good games.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Please. Just please.
Okay, well, those weren't yeah, obviously those were great remakes, but another remake that also got completely snubbed was the System Shock remake. Like,
Oh
holy shit,
yeah.
holy shit, this was amazing. Like, and that's coming from someone who admittedly just could not get into the original. Like, I remember I talked about this in our first FPS tier list, where it's like I respect the original System Shock, but I just felt like it was just a bit too ahead of its time. Like, it was just a bit too complicated for what it was trying to do because of the limited hardware and just all that fun stuff. Because it came out in 1994. But with this remake, it basically just brings the game to a much more, modern state. And I played the demo. The demo was really good. And I mean really good. So much so that like it was honestly a tough call like about what I like ultimately chose, cuz like this thoroughly impressed me. And honestly, this makes me want to see if they're going to remake the second game, cuz especially since it's the legacy of these types of games that would eventually influence other games like BioShock. So
like the BioShock franchise, a franchise that I really like.
yeah, so like that's a huge legacy right there, especially since the same people who worked on the BioShock games, they actually worked on System Shock 2. So very important games, and games that I would love to see remakes for, especially since 25-year-old game, and with this proving that this is how you remake a game, pretty good. And then last but not least, we've got Counter-Strike 2, which, yes, I know the fucking joke. It's like, oh, they were so lazy, they just made it the sequel of Counter-Strike as opposed to just like, yeah. And well, yes, there was a bit of a controversy with the fact that they had to remove like a lot of maps. Keep in mind, a lot of maps take time to like, because this is built. They basically changed this from the Source 1 to the Source 2 engine, like the same engine that is used in Half-Life Alyx, which is a complete overhaul of that entire engine. It's not the same engine, and so because of that, it's gonna take. It's gonna take them time for them to be able to get everything. But as far as like what I can tell with Counter-Strike 2, pretty cool. Pretty all right. Though, admittedly, it is kind of shitty that like it's unfortunate that like not all the maps were released quite at launch with this, and again, just Valve, just fucking make another, like, just stop doubling down on like the number 2. I swear to God, that's the most annoying part to me, because they already have 4 games: Counter-Strike, Condition Zero, Source, and CS:GO. My God. But anyways, let's get into the winner.
The winner.
The winner of the remakes and remasters that came out this year is... Let me make sure I get the audience noise, because it's a bit...
What audience noise?
Oh, please clap.
What are you talking? Please clap.
I'm never referencing that ever again, by the way. Anyways, best remake / remaster it was close, but ultimately Resident Evil 4 remake.
Yeah.
So I had to give the knee to this one, because at first I was kind of like questioning whether or not this should even have been remade, since the newer, like the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes were essentially just trying to make them more into like Resident Evil 4, and so they're just remaking Resident Evil 4 as Resident Evil 4 with mechanics of Resident Evil 4. But I was proven wrong. This game turned out to have been a really good revitalization of the classic from 2005, and it is worthy of, continuing on, just, revitalizing and revisiting a lot of the old school games that Capcom worked on throughout the 90s and 2000s. And it's proof. This is proof that even... Okay, truth be told, this and the Dead Space remake is proof that, like, even... You can even blow people away that have doubts as far as remake goes. So, like, at the end of the day, like, the changes that were made were subtle, but they were vastly, improved. And it also helps that the game looks fucking amazing. Like, this is probably one of the best looking games just ever
that we've had so far.
That we've just had thus far, and it's only gonna get, like, better from here, of course. But yeah, like, this is technology. But yeah, Resident Evil 4 Remake is a beautiful, beautiful game. It just sucks, though, that we can't nominate it for Game of the Year because, again, it's a remake. So, like... But yeah, let's... Thankfully, we are getting close to the end, so we're not... Yeah, so now let's get over the big three categories.
Award work is hard work.
So, best art direction. So, what style is the one, what game has, like, the best visual style, basically?
Who won the Vibe Awards?
The Vibe Awards. Shoot, what happened with the... Oh, god damn it, what happened here? Oh, no.
Oh.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so what was actually nominated for Best Art Direction? Hi-Fi Rush, not by us, by Game Awards.
By the
Tears of the Kingdom, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Alan Wake 2. So, I mean, as far as art direction goes, I would actually agree with Tears of the Kingdom and Lies of P. Though not so much the other ones. People are going to be fucking mad with me on Hi-Fi Rush, but if I'm going to be honest, it's not really my thing. Like, it's a very anime-inspired sort of, like, design, and that's not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, like, I'd be fucking lying if, like, I didn't say that I like shit like Death Note, or, obviously Shantae's also inspired by, like, anime by design. But, like, it's, as far as, like, this one goes, it's just not really for me. Like, if I had to say, like, an anime game design I prefer, it would probably be Persona. This just isn't really for me. Nor really just kind of the aesthetics of this whole game in general. And as far as Super Mario Bros. Wonder goes, I mean, it looks graphically good.
It looks cool.
Like, it looks graphically good, but there's a difference between graphical fidelity and art direction. That's, like, some people, unfortunately, have a huge issue. Like, they have a huge problem with trying to conflate they conflate the two all the time. Art direction is talking about the style of the game, not how good the graphics look. There's a difference. And for me, again, this is I'm kind of creeping back to sort of my Mario bias, is that it's just not really a art direction I was always ever appealed to begin with. So, not that Mario, like, is a bad, franchise or anything. It's just not my favorite aesthetic, which is why I wasn't with it for the longest time.
Gotta get with it then.
So, that being said, let's talk about a game I actually really like, but I don't know why the fuck this was nominated for Best Art Direction. Alan Wake 2.
Alan Wake.
So, this is a good game. A great game, I would say.
Very good looking game, but I guess it's the same thing with Mario in that it's like...
Well, no, this is the definition of my problem here. is that this game is
It's
graphically amazing.
but it doesn't have a distinct style.
Yeah, it's not an art style.
It's not a stylized game. It's a good looking game, and I will praise its graphics and the way it looks, but art direction implies that there is an art style, a art direction.
Yes.
It's hard to explain, but
yeah, this is if I'm gonna be honest, Alan Wake 2, it deserves a lot of nominations, but this is the worst nomination that like it got. And you know what's worse?
what?
It fucking won this at the Game Awards.
What could possibly be worse?
It has a bad case of hoodie-itis.
Hoodie-itis.
As I've coined it. For those who don't know, it comes from...
in the clawfish.
Long story short, in 1995, in the Grammys, again, fucking...
Bringing that up again.
Don't yell at me, yell at the Grammys.
The band called Hootie and the Blowfish won Best New Artist in 1996. And, they were fine. They're like a 5 out of 10 band. But, like, they're going against people like Alanis and, Shania Twain, which I think are objectively better artists. Yeah, I know I'm not like a big country or pop fan, but like even I'm like, yeah, no, they're objectively better than Hootie and the goddamn Blowfish. But they were the ones who won. And so they were the worst option out of the fucking nominees. And they won. Thus, hoodie-itis is the term that I've heard. So this is an example of hoodie-itis right here. The worst option was the one that won.
Not the worst game.
Not the worst game, the worst option for what was nominated. So, but, yeah.
Don't yell at me, yell at the Grammys.
Alright, so what would be better options? At least options that I would have chosen. I would reduce it down to 4 choices. Tears of the Kingdom and Lies of P, I would choose. Yes, Lies of P is also a more realistic look, but because of its steampunk and dark fantasy aesthetic, it has an actual art direction to it. So it's not like, just sort of grounded completely in the real world. So it's very distinct. As for the other games, well, Cocoon, we already mentioned it at the indie games. I think it looks very stunning, and I'm surprised that this was not nominated at all, because this was a very distinct looking game, I feel like, very grounded sort of, bug sort of, gray turns to color sort of game. Like, why was this not nominated, but Alan Wake 2 was for this?
I think people just equivalate realism with good looking, and like that's not entirely wrong.
That's not
but when you're
wrong,
with
but, like,
art direction, it's different.
Yeah, like what I will never understand that. But yeah, and honestly, I would put Wild Hearts. I'm surprised this wasn't nominated for that either. Cause this game looks fucking amazing. Cause again, this game, like I said earlier, this has a very sort of woodsy nature look to it. Like there's a lot of like cool like weird tree looking animal creatures in this game, and it looks so stunning and cool. Like it's a very distinct game, even as far as like high fantasy games go. Or I guess this isn't really high fantasy, but fantasy in general. So like why the fuck was this not nominated? But yeah, like this is definitely the one that we have the least amount of. Although, to be fair, it's reasonable because, like, we're starting to get up to the higher tier ones. Yeah. But anyways, so best art direction. So again, this one was actually pretty close as far as art direction goes. Because again, we're not looking at graphical fidelity, we're looking at the visual style. Because again, that would not be fair if we were doing this like for like a game from like 1996. Because, graphics obviously look shit back then. It's about the art direction. But anyways, what do I think is the best art direction of a game for 2023?
The winner.
Lies of P again. If you wanted a game that uses a more realistic tone, this was the game you should have chosen, not Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is not a bad game, but it was the wrong game to win in this category. And this game, yes, you could tell that it is very influenced by stuff like Cthulhu lore, as well as like shit like Castlevania. Yeah, well, not just Lovecraft, but like shit like Dark Souls and Castlevania. Shit, even Bloodborne a little bit, which a lot of people drew comparisons to this game, but it made it its own thing because, like, again, there's influence and then there's copying. This game is an example of something that was influenced, especially with a lot of its steampunk, dark fantasy, Victorian era hybrid look. Like, again, there's very few games that have that look, and it's so cool to, like, visualize. Like, this is a world that, honestly, yeah, this would be a grim, dark world for sure, but, like, as far as, like, visuals go, it is very amazing to look at, as far as, like, the creature designs, and how, even just, like, the costume design. Look at that. Yeah, look at Pinocchio's costume, or whatever the fuck he's called in this game.
His fucking coat.
Like,
Dang.
but, like, look at that. Like, that's so fucking cool. Yeah, and his, like, shield and shit. Like, that is art direction right there. So, and of course, if we were also counting graphical fidelity, which we're not, it is also a beautiful looking game.
But
so,
for the sake of argument.
So yeah, again, Lies of P, and also we're just gonna throw in Ready or Not. Those are games that, like, I want more people to get into if they want original IPs. So, and I'm all for it. So, all right, best story, best narrative, best sort of lore.
We're almost there.
So
we're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there. We got 2 more awards. So what was the best narrative? So what was nominated first at the Game Awards? So it was Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, Alan Wake 2, and Spider-Man 2. I've already mentioned I don't really care for Spider-Man as much. I know there's going to be people who are going to hate me for that one, but that's my thing. With Final Fantasy 16, respectable. Alan Wake 2, pretty respectable.
Good.
With Phantom Liberty, I understand why they chose it, because it was super hyped up, or like throughout like all of 2023, and people were saying that Cyberpunk 2077 got better as a game.
Yeah, like it was people were arguing that it has improved upon the faults of the infamously terrible launch of the base game.
Of the base game. But here's the unfortunate thing. Unlike Security Breach, where it's like the DLC actually made me care, I still don't care about Cyberpunk with this DLC.
This wasn't the redemption that
I wanted. Because, I mean, to be fair, I wasn't really ever the greatest fan of, okay, not greatest as in like I hated Cyberpunk. Like, I just wasn't like a massive fan of like Cyberpunk. Like, not the style, but like the actual the franchise Cyberpunk. It just it wasn't really anything that was in my radar. Again, I'm more of a Warhammer / as far as like tabletop games go, I'm more of a Warhammer / like wargaming type of person. So like, traditional tabletop RPGs like this just weren't really my thing. I was at least paying attention to Cyberpunk when it was like being hyped up throughout like the late 2010s.
I mean, I was kind of looking forward to it, but one look at the reviews that just came flooding in.
I am so glad I did not join that hype train.
Yeah, I was kind of sad. I wasn't like super hyped, but I was thinking of getting the game.
Yeah,
but
another tale of never hype your games to the point of unrealistic expectations, and another case of, hey, companies, get your fucking launches right. So, because of that, I don't care. Also, it's a DLC, so like it's just it feels like it's cheating.
Yeah.
So, and I've already went over my huge thing about Baldur's Gate 3, but here's the problem with that. Oh, it didn't win. That's right. It's one of the few things. Yeah, it's one of the few things that it was nominated that it didn't win. Yeah, Alan Wake 2 actually won this. Okay. Which, honestly, very fair.
Honestly, yeah, I'd say.
Like, but what were some games that I would have personally nominated instead? Let's look. Again, we've got 4 games this time, and well, shit. Okay,
The list is getting more narrow.
Hold on, the fucking god damn it. Okay, Google Slides has a really bad habit of like not detecting where it wants to be on OBS. I don't fucking know why. It's really getting annoying. There we go.
Who doesn't like it? Do I like Twitch?
Well, it doesn't like OBS. Anyways, so I decided to. Oh yeah, Final Fantasy. I decided to basically remove Spider-Man and Baldur's Gate in favor of Octopath Traveler 2. So we've got 2 RPGs here. What, to be fair, Octopath Traveler 2 had a really compelling narrative. Like, I think that, at least from, like, granted, I didn't fully play through the game. I checked it a little bit with Saimori, but as far as narratives go, like, it's a very compelling narrative about, that whole group of people and, them kind of living in this sort of fantasy setting. Pretty cool. Final Fantasy is kind of the opposite approach, where it's like it's just, just a couple of people that it focuses on.
It's more smaller scale.
Yeah, well, it's smaller. Look, it's actually funny because Octopath Traveler is smaller scale, but it's about like a group of people, whereas Final Fantasy is larger scale, but it's about like a couple of people. So, but like they have their. It's still a pretty compelling like storyline. As for Tears of the Kingdom, I decided to nominate this one for the fact that. Not necessarily for like its actual like mainline story, because admittedly its mainline story isn't really too complicated, but more so just a lot of the lore and a lot of the secondary quest stuff that is in the game. Just a lot of the world building, which I will count, by the way, like actual in-game world building, I will count for narrative.
Yeah, not just reading notes. Not just like reading notes.
Yeah, not just reading notes, but like talking to NPCs, going on
visual
like
storytelling.
Yeah, the visual storytelling that counts as narrative in my opinion. Yeah, and not just some background shit. That doesn't count. I don't care what people say. That will never count in my mind. It's got to be like stuff that you can actually do firsthand and not just do a bunch of background research. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom does a tremendous job in that.
Brilliant job.
So, and then as for Alan Wake 2, I mean, it's a continuation of, the Alan Wake story. We got new characters introduced. Definitely taking a more darker approach. Not that the first game wasn't dark, but like definitely a more horror, like even more horror theme we've got here. And just kind of, him starting to lose his mind and just kind of obviously, I'm trying to make sure I don't spoil any of these games, by the way. That's why I'm trying to be very, like... But, like... Yeah, it gets pretty fucking dark. Let's just say. Like, ouch. But let's get into the winners, or at least our winners. And so, the best narrative of 2023 goes to Alan Wake 2.
Alan Wake 2.
So, I know it felt like we were snubbing Alan Wake 2, but like we're finally giving Alan Wake 2 some wins. Don't worry, we're not completely snubbing it. But as far as narrative goes, this is pretty damn good as far as narratives go. Again, it's an excellent continuation of just sort of continuing on just the weird, almost SCP-like stuff that was going on in the first game, continuing on with the sequel, and just sort of making it more of a story of survival, especially since,
survival horror.
It was a survival horror, but more so in the sense that, like, it's like it's kind of like a more fucked up version of like Gravity Falls. It's kind of like it's kind of like you're kind of in like a more rural part of
really kind of not creepy, but just like weird, like just town with all this weird history.
And just these weird creatures just roaming around, and especially since the creatures themselves are more threatening in this game than they were in Alan Wake 1. And they were really threatening in Alan Wake 1. Like, I will always remember the cyclone, like, monster that follows you in that game. But, yeah, as far as Alan Wake 2's story, it also, again, this is actually an example on how you introduce new characters correctly. You don't make them into, like, a character that steals the spotlight from your main character. You have them as an addition, like an addendum, like they
serve a role, they serve a purpose other than just as a replacement.
Yes, and at first it does make it to where like these two storylines are separate, but that ending, like, because admittedly I didn't play through the whole entire game. I skipped all the way to the cutscene, but like, wow, that was, again, it basically plays off as like any sort of thriller. And I hate to use a cliche quote, but like, this game will leave you guessing until the very end. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but like,
the fucking movie poster.
I mean, to be fair, these pictures I chose do look like movie posters. But at the end of the day, though, like, this was a really, like, this, I think, this is another one where they actually got it right. Alan Wake may have not deserved art direction, but it definitely deserves narrative. Like, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on that one. So, but last but not least, the final and big bad award of the night, Game of the Year. This is the big one. So, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is the big thing. Shit, I forgot to turn off the ads. Fuck.
Oh no. Oh no.
Don't worry. I'll be announcing it once that fucking ends. But yeah, while that goes, I think we're going to talk about the ones that were nominated by the actual Game Awards. So, Game of the Year. Best game to represent the entire year, and I think you can argue most people would consider to be the best game of said year. So, what were the final nominations from our lovely friends like Jeff Keighley over at the Game Awards. Resident Evil 4. Oh boy. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Baldur's Gate 3. Oh no. Alan Wake 2. Spider-Man 2. And Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I'm just going to spoil this right now. I am so happy they did not choose Resident Evil 4, because that would have been really dumb. Because, well, spoiler alert for potentially later down the line, it won the 2005 award. So it would have been super awkward if it actually won this year as well, if I'm going to be honest. So, but it did not win, and again, it shouldn't win because it's a remake. It's a really good remake. Obviously, we gave it the award, but it just doesn't deserve the win, because it already won the same award. You can't
imagine though. Imagine.
Yeah, that would have been really fucking stupid. But anyways, as far as the other choices go, again, Spider-Man 2, I'm sorry, I just don't really care for it as much. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, it's a good game. It's a good game for what it is, but is it Game of the Year material? No. It just doesn't really fit that mold. That's the issue with it. Is that
something that people are going to remember, in many years down the line.
Yeah, it's not really a game that I would. It's definitely not a game I would say is oh, this is definitely the best game of the year. I don't think anyone was saying that with Mario Wonder. If you love the game, that's awesome, but I don't know if it's most people's first choice for game of the year. And we already had our spiel with Baldur's Gate 3. You know what the fucking problem is, though? They chose Baldur's Gate 3 as fucking Game of the Year. So...
Well, and there you have the answer as to why. There you have the
answer as to why. This is why you're seeing a bit of a pattern, right? Baldur's Gate 3 got nominated for so many awards and won them. I'm pretty sure it won 5 awards. And again, it's not me shitting on Larian. It's me shitting on Wizards of the Coast. It's don't fucking do that shit. Again, if they did... Here's the thing. If they didn't do that, I would be having a completely different tune. I would actually be supporting this. I would be fine with this, but I can't in good conscience.
They completely tanked their fucking reputation with that stunt.
Yeah, after that fucking stunt, I don't want to touch anything involving D&D or Magic the Gathering ever again. And unfortunately, Larian's paying the price, and I don't want them to pay the price, because I actually think they're very fucking talented. Because again, Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, I think are some of the best RPGs ever made. But it sucks that they had to, it just sucks that, they were forced to put a Divinity game on with a Baldur's Gate skin on it. If it didn't have the skin, I would be way happier. But I can't join the hype with everyone else when it comes to this game. I simply can't. I'm genuinely sorry, but after something like that, you crossed the line for me. So, and this isn't what happened with Hogwarts Legacy, where it's fucking J.K. Rowling's a piece of shit, and so because of that, people are boycotting. No. These motherfuckers actually did some fucked up shit. For real.
Yeah. They didn't just say shit.
Yeah, they actually did shit, and I can't support a company that does that shit. So, because that is way too fucking far. So, yeah, if I'm going to be honest, it's this as well as the 2020 Game Awards. Remember that fucking stunt?
Ooh.
That's why I'm doing this. Because I'm so fucking sick and tired of Game Award shows doing this bullshit. And again, I don't care if this game is popular. I don't like what it represents, and it's only going to continue Wizards of the Coast being encouraged to do shit like that because they have at least one avenue of revenue that is going to go directly to their pockets. So that they can probably hire more fucking mercenaries to fucking go after people.
Mercenaries to harass people.
So, again, I know I'm alone on this opinion. And that sucks. Because I know for 90% of people, they don't actually give a fuck. But it's I just want people to be aware. So, and this isn't something that happened years ago. This was last year, months before this released. So, I'm sorry, but it stings me because again, I was interested in Baldur's Gate, but I can't. Whatever. I'm not going on that rant again. Point is that as far as Game of the Year, it does not deserve Game of the Year. Solely because of the license that's used.
Yeah, on principle.
Yeah, on principle, and that's sad. That being said, Tears of the Kingdom and Alan Wake 2, just like with the previous nomination, they are both deserving of Game of the Year, and it sucks that neither of them won. So, what would I have chosen as the final games? Honestly, I would have chosen Tears of the Kingdom and Alan Wake, but I'm genuinely surprised that Lies of P did not get nominated for the Game of the Year. It got so many nominees, and it won, I think, 1 or 2, but it just no Game of the Year. What the hell? Final Fantasy 16, honestly, I would put it in that same category too. That game got snubbed so bad too. It only won Best Scored Music. Which, I mean, to be fair, we didn't actually have it win anything here. Slight spoiler alert, it's not going to win this, but
what?
I feel bad that it just wasn't recognized, especially since it's actually one of the better Final Fantasy 6. It's one of the better Final Fantasies. So, but yeah, and then Armored Core 6, again, kind of surprised that one the only thing that got nominated for was, I think, Best Action Game at the Game Awards. What the hell? But whatever, let's get this over with. We've been at this for an hour longer than I thought, if I'm going to be honest, and I do apologize.
No.
So,
we're good.
But let's get this over with. What do I think is actually the best game to represent the year? Well,
the game of the year of 2023.
Yes, because
subjective opinion.
Yeah, because honestly, this fight is actually pretty close. Because there's some games on there that we kept giving multiple nominations for. Tears of the Kingdom, Lies of P, and Alan Wake 2. It's pretty close between those three. But if I had to choose just the best overall game, at least in my personal opinion, the best game of 2023 is Alan Wake 2.
Wow.
This is the game that actually should have won. Well, I said Game of the Way.
Game of the Way.
Oh my god.
Game of the Way.
Okay, Game of the Year should have gotten to Alan Wake 2. Because this game has solid gameplay. Very similar to... It actually plays very similarly to the newer Resident Evil game, like Resident Evil remakes. And so it has that going for it. But again, that story, like, again, it's more of a thriller horror story. And I think that as far as, you know, sorry, I'm just fixing that now. But as far as like actual games go from 2023, it was, again, it's, you can definitely make a good case between Zelda, Lies of P, and Alan Wake 2. Like, and I would not disagree with you. But if I had to choose one that did the best overall, Alan Wake 2 I think did it best, because again, gameplay, story, it being like the only survival horror, like one of the best horror games released in a while that isn't Resident Evil. It's a worthy successor to the original, and the new additions such as characters and enemies and all that, it felt earned. And the ending also felt earned with Alan Wake 2. So, at the end of the day, I do genuinely think that, like, at least as of, like, in my opinion, this is the best game from 2023. So, there you have it.
Congratulations, Mr. Wake.
Yeah, congratulations, Remedy Entertainment. You guys made a worthy sequel, and a much better sequel than another well-respected AAA studio that did a sequel after a long time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But this is a good game. So let's recap. So
it's a good game.
These are all the awards that were given out throughout tonight. Best indie game went to Herat. Action adventure went to Tears of the Kingdom. Role-playing game went to Lies of P. Shooter game went to Ready or Not. Strategy went to Jagged Alliance. Jagged Alliance 3. Multiplayer went to Ready or Not as well. DLC expansion went to Security Breach Ruin. Remake remaster went to Resident Evil 4. Art direction went to Lies of P. And best narrative and game of the year went to Alan Wake 2. So
a variety of games.
Yes, also another thing, like, yeah, there's some that have multiple awards, but a pretty good variety right there, which, as it should be. Before we end this, I did just kind of want to get a few shout outs of just my personal favorite games that are well respected from 2023. So these I do feel like are the best games from 2023. Herat, Ready or Not, System Shock, Dead Space, 40k Bolt Gun, Alan Wake 2, Tears of the Kingdom, Octopath Traveler 2, Lies of P, and Armored Core 6. In no particular order, by the way. So, if you wanted a top 10, there you go.
Well, yeah, there's our top 10 list. That's all you're going to get. We're not going to milk this out any longer.
Yeah.
This is it. So, deal with it.
Don't forget about the guilty pleasures.
Oh, of course, guilty pleasures. Is there a guilty pleasures list?
Yes.
I
would. Granted, not all these games I've played, and I acknowledge that they have faults, but I can't help but actually somewhat think that they look cool. Obviously, Atomic Heart came out. That one, at first I thought that one was going to qualify, but I saw the score get lowered, so it didn't qualify. But it has a really cool aesthetic. Basically Soviet BioShock.
Yeah.
So it has its problems. I acknowledge those problems, but I still think that it looks pretty cool, and even just like the gunplay.
Soviet themes, Soviet and like Slavic themes this year.
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah, like 2023 had a lot of that. Jedi Survivor. Again, if that game just had a better PC launch, I guarantee you it would have been. I would have actually gotten that. It would have qualified, and truth be told, I probably would have even qualified it for Game of the Year. But because of that shit PC launch, it didn't cut it. But I still think it's pretty cool. As far as Starfield goes, I mean, I think, okay, with Starfield, I like the concept of Starfield. Like, I like what they set up. I just kind of hope that, like, if they do work on a sequel or an expansion, that they flesh it out. So that one's probably the most tentative on the guilty pleasures, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
So do keep that in mind. That being said, though, here's probably my biggest hot take. I think Assassin's Creed Mirage actually looks fucking awesome. I acknowledge that it was originally supposed to be DLC for fucking was it Valhalla? Like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But like I think their approach of making this they did not make this a full price game. They made this, I think, like a $40 game, and they basically, they went down to a more Assassin's Creed Brotherhood / Revelation scale, which, I mean, I love both those. Like, okay, I wouldn't say I love both those, but I like both those Assassin's Creed games. So like I don't really mind that, if I'm going to be honest. Yes, it has its problems, and you can definitely argue that there's better Assassin's Creed games, but I just love the Middle Eastern setting. I don't fucking care. I just think Baghdad looks fucking cool.
You are a sucker for the Middle Eastern stuff.
Yes, I'm a sucker. I did a whole fucking 2-week stream of me building an entire Middle Eastern palace. It should be pretty obvious.
You're a sucker for that kind of stuff.
So like, I mean, it's at least from what I can tell, it's at least better than like Valhalla and Odyssey. So at the end of the day, like, it's an improvement.
And Unity.
Oh, definitely Unity. It's definitely better than Unity from what, like, it's not even a question. At least it actually launched correctly.
At least it works.
Which is actually a rarity for Ubisoft games. Rarely Ubisoft games ever launch pretty good.
We have to say that.
So, and if I'm just going to be honest, the last two are mostly just because they both have two characters I really like on.
They're in the poster, as you can see. We'll let you guess who they are.
We'll let you guess what characters they are, but although, to be fair, though, I heard good things about Help Wanted 2. I heard that it was actually really, really good. Like, even people who don't even like FNAF actually liked it, so. But that concludes the first Caspian Awards.
Caspian Award.
So, I mean, at least we didn't go for too long. Like, at least we went under 4 hours. Like, we barely just reached 3 hours. So I hope you're fine, at least all right with that.
I'm good. I am tired, but I am good.
But yeah, again, just let us know if you guys want to see more of these. We'll definitely do other years. Though if we do that, I think we'll definitely just go from 2022 down. We're not just gonna be sporadic about it. And yeah, it was definitely kind of interesting to just kind of go back and see the different awards that were given throughout the Game Awards. I mean, yeah, this year wasn't very good, but trust me, there were way worse years of the Game Awards. Trust me on that one. 2020.
Oh.
So, you have any last minute remarks, my dear friend?
I want to take a nap. That's what I want to do.
All right. Well,
I want to curl up in a ball and sleep.
Well, thanks for joining in with me on this one. I know you didn't talk as much, but
I am glad that I can be a part of internet history.
Again, shout out to Goldie. Check out their Instagram. You can share it in the chat, by the way, if you want. But yeah, go check them out. They are currently working on a few character storylines right now, and they post a lot of their own art on their Instagram. So if you guys are interested in some slice of life content, feel free to check that out.
I did the originals. I fill the voids that people don't know that they need yet. People don't know that they need my content, but they will. One day, someday, any day,
Every day.
every day.
But yeah, again, make sure to check his stuff out. And again, thank you for joining me on this one. And for everyone who is in the chat, I hope you guys did enjoy this. Again, let us know if you guys want to see more of this. If you guys do, and you guys also want to check out some of the other stuff I do, make sure to hit that follow button down below and turn the bell icon so that you'll be notified exactly when I'll be streaming. I'll also make sure that if we do more of these, I will have like a new standby screen for it because I think it'd be pretty awesome.
And you will have an envelope.
Yeah, I will actually have like, you know, not a vanilla envelope, but like an actual like smaller like white one. But yeah, if you guys want to check that out, hit that follow button down below, turn the bell icon. If you guys haven't already, you can also hit that subscribe button. If you can't necessarily do that, that's completely fine. I'm just glad that you guys took time to watch this. If you want to check out some of my other stuff down below as well, there's Discord, Blue Sky, YouTube, DeviantArt, SoundCloud, all that fun stuff. And yeah, make sure to share the stream around and continue to be awesome in the process. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday. And I'll see you guys later. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.